Yeah, we're back, suckers. Greatest in the world.
Yeah. Best in the world. How's it going, everybody? Everybody ready to talk about GoBot's Challenge of the Rock Lords?
I'm ready to talk about that all-time animation classic.
You're ready to talk about the final Orson Welles motion picture?
For sure. It was a cinematic achievement. He was building up to it all his life. It's funny you mentioned that because some of these weird internet fans sometimes leave a message for the old Boba Joe show. Sometimes they're fans, sometimes they're crank callers. You never exactly know. But we've got to look, before we get into the show, a little clip we'll play here.
We bring you a tale of the extraordinary, a journey into the realms of the unknown, where reality blurs and imagination takes flight. Prepare yourselves for an odyssey beyond the confines of the ordinary, as we embark on a quest to unravel the mysteries that dwell in the shadows of the mind. Tonight, we invite you to join us on a voyage through the corridors of time and space, where the echoes of the past mingle with the whispers of the future. It is a world more, much more than meets the eye, where the boundaries of the possible are pushed to their very limits. So gather round, dear listeners, and brace yourselves for an experience unlike any other. For in the next hour, we shall delve into the depths of the unknown and emerge forever changed. Welcome to the Boba Joe Show. Now, dear lads, pass me that bottle of red wine, won't you? And the dessert menu certainly tickles my fancy. For I am Orson Welles, and the great hunger is upon me once more. Prepare for the war of the words. Damn it, I meant worlds. Curse that wine. What's that? Some noise in the booth there. Another take. And it's for a movie about robots in outer space, not a War of the Worlds revival? For God's sake, man, what did I do to deserve such debauchery? You let me read that far before telling me it's the wronged copy? You people are such pests. I'll see to it that these Boba Joe clowns never work in this town again.
But yeah, nice little message there.
Well, like, that's just your opinion, Orson. And be forewarned, we do have a network backing us, so don't even think about taking any type of legal action. We got lawyers out the yin yang here, so never ever challenge us in court over anything we talk about.
No, definitely not any sort of illegal AI voice clones or nothing like that. That's nothing to do with us.
Yeah, and our NFTs are top quality products.
Top dollar, top quality.
Whatever happened to you after receiving one of our NFTs, that's on you. It's nothing to do with the product. You can't sue us. Once again, the network is backing us. Leave us alone.
If you die of an unforeseen event because of a Boba Joe NFT, well, should have read the fine print. That's all I can say.
Oh, yeah. So Transformers, the movie. Not directed by Michael Bay.
Thank fucking Christ for that. Once upon a time, there was just the movie. And now any time you think of any Transformers movie, it's going to be something other than this.
When you start have to distinguishing between multiple animated movies and now live action movies. Bleh. But here we are. We're here at the original El Clasico, and the best, in my opinion.
I've had the unfortunate experience of watching those modern films multiple times because I'm some kind of weirdo, even stuff that's just awful. I end up watching it again, almost like a car wreck. You're just like, did that really happen? Did they really do that stuff? But to me, this is the movie. Emphasis on the, like everything else after this, it just doesn't exist. Just it's gone. It's gone forever. Wiped it out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And look, younger folks or other folks who do like the live action movies, sorry. Please continue to like them. do not take this as a personal attack on your likes or dislikes or the type of life you're living or anything like that. Just not really for me. I'm soundly kind of stuck in the G1, G2 era, and that's just who I am.
I watch Pain and Gain, but you know, there's too much painting and gaining in those Transformers movies.
How did you first get to watch this back in the day?
I'm glad you asked that, because I'm going to ask you the same question in a moment. I distinctly recall it quite vividly, and it's like, this is how much I like Transformers. Like, I went to some kid's birthday party that I do not remember the name of, and I can't remember his face, but we ate food and ran around like idiots. And there was a VHS rental copy playing of this that we watched at some point, and I can distinctly remember seeing the TV. It would have been like a 14-inch CRT, and there was a bunch of us sitting cross-legged on the floor watching it, and probably hopped up on junk food and cola and all that. And that's my first memory of ever seeing this film, other than I had the Lady Bird hardcover book, which I think is a British imprint. I'm not 100% sure. And that had stills from the film. And I used to have that as like a nighttime book. I would look at it, but sometimes I'd get my dad, like, Dad, read me the Transformers book when I'm going to school when I'm a little kid. You know, I'm in bed and he'd read me the book. And it had really beautiful stills from the film that were good quality on good paper. And I remember just being so excited about the idea of actually seeing this film before any chance of actually watching it, which was just at some kid's birthday party, and probably saw half or three-quarters of the film, and more than a decade passed before I got to see it again on another VHS or DVD.
Awesome.
How about you?
So for me, I had been regularly renting episodes from season 1 and season 2 from the local video shop. And when I say I was renting, my father was renting them on my behalf. I think if I remember correctly, I think if you were to rent kind of to, movies like, actual movies, you get a free rental of it, like a kid's video. I think that was like the deal back in the day. So when he'd be going to rent a couple of tapes, he'd usually pick me up like a Transformers video with some episodes on it. And then one weekend he came home with his videos, and it was Transformers the movie, and I was like, whoa, what is this, a movie? So I watched it straight away, loved it immediately, like stuck the tape back in, rewind it, and just watched it again.
Was the network show still playing on TV or repeats then when you saw this, or not?
No. So my first exposure to the actual,
because it kept playing in New Zealand for like more than 10 years. Like, I watched it all when I can remember seeing it at 4 years old, 8 years old, 10. When I was 14 in high school, it just repeated like every year, always, all the time in New Zealand.
All, like, the majority of my exposure to G1 Transformers was all from video rentals. The show,
that's why I'm curious,
because
I never rented a Transformers video ever, because it was always on television, like Masters and Transformers played for like 15 years on repeats.
Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky. Yeah, they were only in the video shops here, and which is what led to a lot of childhood confusion for me watching this movie, because
I used to even record some of them off TV with our VHS player thing, and I'd have Simpsons and Frasier and Transformers and all these cassettes sitting around.
Yeah, because like I was confused because, like I said, I had rented episodes, or my dad had rented episodes for me. They were from season 1 and season 2. And then all of a sudden I watched this movie, and I didn't know who a good few of the characters were. And
who were these guys?
Thought that I had missed out. I thought there must have been loads of episodes I'd missed in between the show and the movie. And, I didn't know for years and years that, no, they actually pretty much just did a big time jump and, did a big leap forward in the story.
It never bothered me as a kid. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I've read comic books out of order and such, and eventually kind of years apart pieced together stories, and it never bothered me, the time jump or the new characters. I'm just like, they're robots, they're fighting, it's Transformers, cool. I was like, and when they famously, of course, killed off Optimus Prime in the film, and apparently a lot of kids got upset. It never bothered me in the least. I'm just like, well, I like Optimus, but Grimlock's my favorite, and he's not dead, and he kicks ass in the film, so I don't care.
Well, I was definitely I was sad when I watched it when Optimus Prime passes away. I know we're really skipping ahead here, but don't worry, we'll go back. We'll get into all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wasn't like devastated because look, I was, as I've stated many times on the channel before, I was pretty much allowed to watch almost anything I wanted as a kid. So I'd already watched like actual live action movies where characters
Yeah,
die and
same.
TV shows or people you like die and stuff. So I was kind of just used to that being something as a possibility that could happen to a character. And I, as a kid, I wasn't aware that there was that kind of unwritten rule where characters generally wouldn't be killed off. Like I always thought there was a sense of jeopardy that any character could bite the dust at any time. So this movie just added to that even more.
It does feel more like a Japanese anime where it's a bit more adult. It's still a kids thing, but it feels a bit more adult. Like there's consequences to what's going on.
Yeah, and look, depending on what region you're in or what version of the movie you've watched, like it's a kids movie, but there's some swearing in it. It's pretty violent, and there's some dark tones to it. But yeah, like
there's also
nothing to be writing
a
to the
funny
Parents Television Council about.
Depending on what region you're in, there's multiple edits of this. Some include a Star Wars style opening credits scroll explaining all the plot on certain versions, and
That was
on
the one
some
I
of the
watched for the
versions,
first time.
yeah, on some of the versions at the end, there's a voiceover going, "And by the way, Optimus Prime lived, and he'll be back next time." Good stuff. There's some versions like that as well.
Yeah, it used to say at the end of my one, it used to say, "And the greatest leader of all time, Optimus Prime, will return." That's what it used to say at the end of my video.
But yeah, it's hilarious, just the little ADR and stuff there. But I love the way the film starts off.
Can you remember which one it was that you watched for the first time? Because I know the one I watched was the one with the Star Wars
the rental
scroll.
one. I think the rental one had that Star Wars crawl, which was like, I think it was like a phosphorescent blue. It was kind of a mix between Superman and Star Wars as far as the kind of look of it. But I don't think it had that thing at the end about Optimus Prime will return, because I remember reading about that years later and going, I've never heard that. So I don't think it had that bit in it. And it is different. There's about 3 major cuts of the film. I mean, it's the same film. I'm just talking about really about those the credit sequence being different internationally. For different territories like USA, UK, but some of Australia, New Zealand, some of the areas had ever so slight differences again.
And even just the opening.
It's so metal. It's just like death and carnage.
Oh, it's so good. It's the soundtrack to this movie is unbelievably good, from the Vince DiCola actual orchestral soundtrack to the film, right down to the actual rock and metal songs that feature in the movie.
And the film score playing in the background as well in the opening scene.
Fantastic score. I was lucky enough, my friend Jason a few years ago was managed to get his hands on the kind of proto session piano recordings that Vince DiCola did at one of the BotCons for this movie, where he pretty much plays through the entire soundtrack of the movie from beginning to end. And I'm lucky I managed to get a copy of that off him that I regularly listen to, because I just love the sound of this movie.
Yeah, and I like in the opening we get the Unicron, who's just this big sphere planetoid floating along, and you hear the music's almost like a kind of heartbeat sound as it goes along, and there's kind of industrial mechanical noises, and attacks the planet of Lithone, and where Kranix and his people live. And this is a race of robots we've never seen in the show before. They're completely new to us as an audience, and he just ravages this planet. And it's like, I don't know, it makes me think of like Superman and Krypton and evacuation, and it's like, the whole planet's getting destroyed. We've got to get out of here.
Yeah, it's a great opening scene, and that kind of musical theme that accompanies Unicron anytime he's on screen. It's very reminiscent of the Ivan Drago theme from Rocky IV, which is another kind of Vince DiCola scored movie. I always get similar vibes. But yeah, the way Unicron as a force operates, like this isn't just like, you know, the Death Star, which is taking a shot at your planet and then it goes kaboom. Like he's devouring these worlds, and it always looks pretty brutal because you see the two giant frontal spikes kind of almost like act like mandibles that capture the victim planet, and then it just sucks it into his mouth while he crunches away at it. And you know, it's once again, I suppose it's you kind of have to remind yourself, oh look, it's just robots. They're just robots. They're not actual living things. But within the context of what we're seeing now, like the first shot we see of this planet Lithone, you see two little child bots running around. They're happy, they're playing, they're making cute, squeaky little sounds. And a moment later, you have to assume these poor little bots have been sucked up into the oblivion, are now being crunched and eaten alive by this planet. It's pretty harrowing stuff.
And I do like that the design of Unicron in his planet form here is definitely riffing on the Death Star. There's a whole bunch of Star Wars themes and stuff, and lifts of scenes from the first Star Wars film and Transformers movies, quite a few. I mean, one time years ago, I did a scene by scene comparison showing some of the shots and the stuff, so I can remember quite a few of them. But he's like a combination of the Death Star from Star Wars and Galactus from Fantastic Four 60s Marvel comics, as far as he's meant to be like this natural force who's just like a apex predator that goes around and just eats things. That's what he does, like a shark eating things in the ocean. That's his nature. It's what he does. But also, as we get into the film, we see he's also kind of evil, as well as being a kind of force of nature or god of chaos, if you want to go that way.
We also get some brief glimpses here of Franix and his colleague who try to escape the planet before it's completely devoured. I love this now. Like I've watched the movie so many times in so many different versions, but I'm assuming do you hear the same thing I hear when he's like the line of dialogue is, the ship, get to the ships, it's our only chance. But on the audio, I always hear it's like, the ship, get to the shit, it's our only chance. It always sounded like that.
It does sound like that, but it's a bit clearer on the Blu-ray version.
But yeah, they try to make their escape, and unfortunately for the guy who's not Kranix, his ship gets caught in the vortex and sucked into the Unicron. And we get to see a little bit of the planet and the ship being consumed, and it's kind of like powering the internal kind of workings of Unicron, and his planetary rings all kind of light up to show he's fed now and he's fully charged up and ready to go, just before we actually get into the proper opening titles of the movie, which, as we mentioned earlier, prelude.
And in any of these stills, like you watch the Blu-ray, you can blow these up on a nice big screen TV, and they look absolutely stunning because it's all been restored in that, and it looks as good as if you were watching the first time print on the cinema screen. And unlike a lot of the VHS copies over the years and other versions, they were really faded and kind of dark and dingy and burnt. It's like watching a fifth generation bootleg of Friday the 13th, watching some of the old Transformers movie on VHS. So all the colors are pristine, but like absolutely stunning. You can freeze frame just about any still from this movie on the big screen, and it looks stunning and beautiful. And you can really see all the work of the Japanese animation team, the details they put in that's not normally there in your Saturday morning or weekday cartoons. This feels like a real big budget movie or anime or Akira. Like it feels like just like a really big budget film.
Great still here of I just love that point of view, as in you're inside the maw of Unicron looking out. It's like that first person view. And like you mentioned there, the kind of continuous kind of re-releases and improvements. I love seeing this movie all cleaned up and in its full, beautiful color experience. Because like you're saying, my VHS, my original copy, when I finally did get a chance to own one, it almost looked like there was a smog over the screen. Like there's like a real kind of like.
There was never a good transfer between, if you back to your first cinematic print, all the way up to when we finally get to the first Blu-ray version. Everything between looks pretty bad. It's like there just wasn't a good version out there. I mean, it was watchable, but as far as the quality of the image.
Even the sound of the movie has been much improved as well.
Yeah.
Like I know I mentioned there at the beginning, it sounded like he's saying "get to the shit," but if you actually watch like the newest Blu-ray version, you can clearly hear him say the word "ships" and not "shit."
The shit ships don't go on the shit ones; they crash.
But like as we can even see from these initial stills that you're showing us, they've really upped their game. Like this isn't your
Yeah,
season
I tried
1,
to pick
season
some where
2.
you could really see the foreground and the background and the color contrast and the light and the dark. And
it's beautiful. Like it's a really beautiful animation
Hmm.
and so much better than season 1 and season 2. Don't get me wrong, like
Oh,
I like
yeah.
season 1 and season 2 of Transformers, but this movie just
Oh, I
blows them
love
out.
them. I watch them so much, but this is it really shows is it's a Western written story in the Transformers and the brand, but obviously it comes from Diaclone and Takara and yada yada yada. But this visual style and look really shows the rich history and lineage of Japanese anime and Japanese robot anime going back into the 60s and 70s, which I've watched quite a lot of, mostly because I'm a fan of Transformers. And eventually, once you watch all the Transformers, like every show ever several times, you're like, what else is there? You go and watch Brave slash Yusha from the 90s and watch Combat La Vie and the original Go Lion. And there's so many awesome robot animes and Die Rugged. There's dozens of them that are absolutely amazing. And the real lineage of all those sort of shows is kind of felt in just the quality of how good this looks and how amazing it is. Like no other country could have made it, done this look at that time. Like no American studio or anything could have got it to look like this.
Yeah, and it's a spectacular, like the design, like on this planet, like Lithone, like we only get to see it for what, like less than 2 minutes of time, and even just the amount of effort for the design. Like look at the circuitry running along the ceiling there, and just the general, like it's just so, it's like something you'd see in a Ralph
phosphorescent
McLaren Star
glowing
Wars
light on the
concept.
guy's like butt, pretty much. But like all the little minor details are just, you see this for like not even 2 seconds.
Yeah, and just to see it kind of freeze framed here, it really makes you appreciate just what a great job they did.
The first version of the Blu-ray, I mean, I do own it, but then I've got a digital rip of it. I've been through it a number of times by myself, nothing to do before we even started doing Boba Joe Show. Look, when I was just looking through at the Blu-ray, I was like, holy heck, some of the stills and stuff you see when you go through frame by frame, it's amazing. There's so much cool stuff in there.
Before we get a little bit more into the meat of the matter, I will actually just do a brief public service announcement. If anybody watching or listening now has not, for whatever reason, watched Transformers the movie, and you do actually have an interest in it and want to watch it, as I speak right now on YouTube, if you just type in Transformers the movie, you will actually get a full 1080p HD quality rip of the movie that someone has kindly uploaded on YouTube.
Yeah,
And
there's a few. There's at
looks
least 2 or 3
fantastic.
channels with dodgy ones that haven't been taken down yet.
So look, I'm just putting it out there. If anybody's looking to watch it, whether that's to watch it for the first time or just rewatch it, and you don't have a physical copy and it's not on a streaming service that you pay for, it's there for free. Go and watch it.
I'm amazed it hasn't been taken down because I've seen a few on there that pop up when I was looking up general stuff, and I'm like, oh, there's the movie again.
I'm kind of amazed that it hasn't just been officially uploaded on the official Transformers.
Yeah, it is surprising because they've got the full original show, the Marvel Sumbo Hasbro shows on there, and it's actually the best version of the show. It's better than what's on any of the various international DVD versions. Because when I did start uploading, I looked at it compared to the DVD on my same computer, window by window next to each other in the video player, and I went, "This looks brilliant." So I immediately ripped all of it off YouTube, so I've got that version offline to watch.
So we're getting into the meat of the matter now. We're told that it's the year 2005.
2000.
So we really
Far
jumped
future
ahead.
at that time.
Oh, big time! Yeah, I was like, wow, 2005, amazing.
We have hover cars and butler robots by then.
But so we got a kind of a little brief. Like I said, depending on what version you watched, you might have read this off a blurb, or you would be hearing a voice narrator tell you that the treacherous Decepticons have conquered the Autobots' home planet of Cybertron. So now the Autobots are forced to kind of inhabit as 2 of Cybertron's moons. So there's Moon Base 1 and Moon Base 2. They are no longer occupying Cybertron. Cybertron is under Decepticon control. And as we see Laserbeak approaching the Autobots' moon base here to do a bit of spying, and we overhear Optimus Prime talking to Ironhide. He's trying to get a report of what's going down, because the plan is to launch a trip to Autobot City on Earth to recoup some Energon supplies. And yeah, it's just I'm trying to hold back from just going into complete, let's just go through the dialogue bit by bit, because it's running around in my head.
Klingon boxing. Can we get back to this later?
All we need is a little Energon and a lot of luck.
But, yeah, I like that they play up. Like in the TV show, there was always the back and forth that evacuated Cybertron. They're living on Earth. They're kind of like space refugees, I guess. And then they're warring for energy all the time. But then the Decepticons always had the space bridge, and it's like, oh, we can just go back there anytime. But Autobots have got to try and fly over there and bloody Omega Supreme or Skylynx or try and sneak into that space bridge. And here it's just like, no, you're all stuffed. It used to be just Shockwave hanging out there. But now it's like, Decepticons have fully taken over the home planet again.
Yeah, in this movie as well, there's a lot of Transformers. It can be a tricky thing sometimes to rationalize, because you watch the TV show, and the TV show is very focused on this core group of good guys and bad guys. Yeah. But you do have to always kind of keep in mind in the back of your head, well, there's actually like a whole race of Autobots and Decepticons.
We don't see them very often.
Yeah, you barely ever see them, but like at the moment we have to remember, like at this time, Cybertron is like totally populated with Decepticons. We'll see a little brief glimpse of that at the end of the movie when Unicron attacks, but it's quite the thing to try and get your head around as a kid, at least when, because I know when I was watching
like
it,
I was a million years of civil war or something like that.
Yeah, it's really, it can be a real mind boggler, especially when you're a kid and you only see like the same 20 or 30 characters for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you have to kind of think, oh wait, there's like a whole planet full of guys that we've never seen. And
we just didn't have the budget to show them that often in the TV show.
So Prime, he wants to launch a mission to Autobot City on Earth to go get some Energon. So we get the shuttle countdown from Cliff Jumper. We also see Jazz on the monitor here, who's happily informing Prime that there's no Decepticon shenanigans in the area, so it's safe to go ahead and launch the shuttle.
Laserbeak spying on you.
Laserbeak spying on them the whole time. Terrible security protocols here that the Autobots have, because Laserbeak and Ravage have been spying on them for years, but they've never really been able to counteract it in any way.
These big panic things where you see the monitors look amazing too. If you watch them on like Blu-ray on the big screen, and that those scenes of those monitors look amazing. Every bit of detail, you can see what's in there. Like they look really beautiful.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And like we were saying, like if you're looking at this on a good, either like a HD rip or a decent disc version, your eyes are going to be in for a treat. It really does look spectacular. So Laserbeak, he finishes up his little recording. His high-tech scope camera goes back inside his head, and he flies back to Cybertron, where he's reunited with Megatron and the other Decepticons. So here we see Megatron, Soundwave.
That's exactly how my Megatron is on my shelf just over there. He's just like that with the Laserbeak on his arm.
And of course, we get Megatron's got the great line. It's like, "Welcome, Laserbeak. Unlike some of my other warriors, you never fail me," while looking directly at Starscream. Great line, And I just love that look Starscream gives him. Like, he looks away from the controls like, the fuck do you just say?
Yeah, I love how Megatron openly disparages all of his underlings, everyone who's basically not Shockwave or Soundwave just gets trash talked.
So yeah, Laserbeak transforms into his tape mode, jumps inside Soundwave, and they replay the footage that we've just seen of Optimus ordering Ironhide to travel to Autobot City on Earth, and it replays the line of "all we need is a little energon and a lot of luck," and then Megatron's like, "More than you imagine, Optimus Prime," which is a great bit of menacing dialogue from Megatron just moments before we see this brutal attack that's about to happen on the Autobot shuttle.
Yeah, he's just literally ripping through the wall of this scene, and where they bust in and then just start massacring everyone.
And it really is a massacre. So we get a brief moment. We see Ironhide and Prowl. They're just piloting the shuttle. I believe like Brawn is on there as well. Ratchet's there. Next thing, we just hear a big boom, and the Decepticons board the shuttle. We start hearing the excellent song "Instruments of Destruction," which is just a great piece of music. And yeah, we just bear witness to this absolute massacre. Megatron, he transforms into gun mode and blows a hole straight through Brawn, and Ratchet and Ironhide get up, start shooting, Prowl shooting, and they all just get gunned down one by one. It's a total massacre. And like, one thing, like, straight away you can see the difference if you're used to watching the TV show. In the TV show, when
They
Autobots
were
or Decepticons
indestructible.
get hit, yeah, they were practically indestructible. Like,
they get shot and just put back together.
Yeah, or you might see a little bit of scuff on the arm. It's like, oh, he got me in the shoulder or whatever. Are you okay, buddy? Like, nobody was ever really in any, or at least it felt like there was no jeopardy there. But in this movie, when you see that shot hit Prowl and his eyes just go orange and the smoke starts emanating from his eyes, like, oh, he's dead. Like, this bot is dead. Like, and Ratchet's chest getting blown apart. But of course, the most hardcore moment, and one that really would tug at the heartstrings, just because I do love Ironhide, when Megatron's approaching the control panel and Ironhide crawls towards him and like grabs him by the leg, and he's like, "No!" And Megatron's like, "Such heroic nonsense," before blowing his brains out. Like, that's hardcore right there.
Yeah, it's hardcore. It's very metal. As a kid, it's like, whoa! It's like they're just killing everybody, and which I kind of liked because it was just like how adult it felt. But at the same time, it's like on the show, it's like, well, they were indestructible on the show. How come they're so soft all of a sudden? They can't take a beating. They just get killed instantly.
And look, I'm not going to like start picking apart continuity or anything like that, but you can. In the show, there is an awful lot of like dodging shots and ducking shots.
Yeah, they're firing just over their heads and over the rocks.
Yeah, but this is like the first time we ever get to see, like, oh no, point blank, like you got shot in the chest, like, or this guy's head is no longer attached to his shoulders, like it's just a smoldering, fireball. And of course, the Autobots, they're like stormtroopers in Star Wars. They just can't hit anything because you've got Ratchet there. Ratchet's doing his akimbo shots, and like, oh, it just shows the Constructicons just kind of duck out of the way, and then everybody just launches at him and blows the piss out of him. So the shuttle has been commandeered. Megatron gets in a little bit more diss on Starscream. He's kind of questioning whether they should just use the shuttle to attack the moon base instead of attacking Autobot City. But Megatron just says, "You're an idiot, Starscream," which is about as blunt as you can put it. So we're whisked off to Earth, where we are introduced for the first time to Hot Rod and Daniel, who is also a new character to us because he's the son of Spike Witwicky, who we've never seen before up until now. Like I said, we've taken a massive time jump from the 80s now to the ripe old year of 2005. So it turns out Spike has had a kid. I'm guessing Carly is supposed to be his mum. Yeah. Is that right?
They don't really tell you, but yeah, she is, because when you see the Headmasters anime that takes place after that, you see Carly in that a fair bit.
Yeah, I even think that I know we're jumping ahead of ourselves here, but I'm pretty sure in Five Faces of Darkness Part 1, when they're at that weird alien Olympics thing. You see Carly with Spike and Daniel as well. So, well, anyway,
yeah, it's one of the things they got left on the floor as far as the different drafts and edits and cuts, is they don't really tell you much about Carly in this compared to the TV show where she was a recurring character.
So we see Hot Rod. He's fishing here with Daniel, and oh no, fish are jumping today, eh, Dano? And you know, they hook one, they reel him in, and you know, Daniel's like, wow, look at the size of it. And Hot Rod's like, yeah, it's a whopper, all right, while holding, like, it looks like just a tiny little anchovy in his giant robot hands. And of course, he very kindly chucks the fish back into the stream, because Daniel, he sees that the shuttle is approaching and he wants to watch it land. And so Hot Rod, he's like, yeah, well, that sounds pretty dull, Daniel. But they take off and they go for a spin out to what's called Lookout Mountain. And this is the first time in the movie where we get to see Hot Rod transform. He's a beautiful, high-tech, futuristic sports car, beautiful alt mode, one of my favorite Autobot alt modes. I just always thought he was a real badass-looking vehicle. So we see Hot Rod. First of all, we actually get to see Daniel take a little spin on his rocket-powered hoverboard, but he hits a rock, so that's why Hot Rod has to transform. And he hits a rock, unfortunately, which is why Hot Rod has to drive him up to Lookout Mountain. But on our way to Lookout Mountain, Hot Rod runs through a checkpoint, which is being run by Cup, who seems to be getting them to construct some type of whatever barricade or something. And you know, we get that line, you turbo revving young punk. You know,
he reminds me of Abraham Simpson on Cup. He always tells these rambling stories that seem to go nowhere and make people fall asleep.
I love Cup. He kind of is almost like the spiritual successor to Ironhide. Now that we've just seen Ironhide, we need another kind of military veteran. Definitely cut from the same jib. So
he's like a Lee Marvin or an Ernest Borgnine because of the character. He's like being in the shit.
Even the shape of his head, it almost looks like he's wearing some type of like policeman's hat or something. Like I could picture him as an old beat cop
or like a Greek helmet or something like that.
So you know, Daniel and Hot Rod, they reach the top of Lookout Mountain, and Daniel goes to take a look through the telescope, and he's like, Hot Rod, look, there's a hole in the shuttle. And Hot Rod's all like, what? So he puts on his cool he activates his cool auto goggle thingies, and it zooms in, and he sees that there's a big hole in the side of the shuttle, and he can also clearly see a few of the Decepticon seekers through the hole. So he just without question immediately starts opening fire with his arm cannons, which causes a big explosion on the shuttle, and all the Decepticons have to bail out, and they start attacking the city. And now we're going to get to see another marvelous piece of action that's just going to continue on for the next few scenes.
Yeah, it's such a showstopper of set pieces. All the action happening here, from very sedate with the fishing scene, and they go for the sort of cool factor with, you got Hot Rod's a sports car, and we got the hoverboard for young Daniel. But then we kick off into this big time action, like Cups runs up to Blitzwing and just bends his turret, and that doesn't normally happen in the show, doing like real damage. And we get to see Magnus, Springer, RC, Blur, Perceptor, and they want to change Autobot City into the battle mode to get all the guns and turrets up. Starscream comes flying in and memorably gets his foot cut. Stuck, and as the big gaps coming together. And then we kick off into more action. We've got tape bots, we got Blaster, we got Soundwave, we got Constructicons, we got Grimlock, and
we got all sorts going on, and it's once again, like I'll try not to get too into a blow-by-blow account with everybody, because there's so many characters now kind of appearing.
But he's going to crack the shell? That's the important question.
first we cracked the shell, then we cracked the nuts inside. But
I love that. Even as a kid, I love that line. It was so good, and that perspective of sitting on top of the glass and seeing it from underneath. That's like scary, man, because that like smashing the glass.
But it should be noted here. So we were just introduced to Hot Rod, Cup, and Daniel, who are new characters to us. We are also now being introduced to
Classics.
Ultra Magnus,
Yeah.
Blur, RC, and Springer, who are also brand new characters as far as we are concerned, as the audience.
Yeah,
like we
designed
didn't
by
get to see Scramble City.
Florida for the film.
So it's look, like from the moment the Decepticons jump out of that shuttle, it's just amazing action after amazing action. So yeah, as you mentioned earlier, we got to see that moment where Hot Rod, he jumps into the kind of down onto the cliffside with Daniel in his arms. Blitzwing lands, he's about to take the shot, but Cup jumps up on top of him. Like you said, he bends the turret and he Blitzwing accidentally ends up shooting one of the Decepticons. I think it's shrapnel. So then, yeah, the two Hot Rod and Cup and Daniel, they try to make it back to the city, where we see that the city's just totally under fire.
And they run over the heads of the Insecticons on the way in, which is great.
That's a brilliant moment. Yeah, one of the Insecticons gets their head brushed under the wheel of Cup, because I believe when Hot Rod runs through, he only kind of knocks them out of the way, but when Cup runs through, like he just
it's
like
spins around on his head several times.
So we see Perceptor. He's in a panic. He runs into the communications tower where Blaster is, and he orders them to radio Prime, Optimus Prime, that is, to send reinforcements. And that's where we get the great moment where Soundwave, he launches Rumble, Frenzy, Ravage, and Ratbat to disrupt the communications on what's going on in the tower.
Check out, there's a fun little color. There's actually several errors in this scene, because there's also, when all the Decepticons drop out of the sky, one of the characters is just Reflector, but colored in red, because it's just like a dummy background reuse, like little tiny silhouette. It's not on the screen there, but I remember from watching it. And if you check out, look where Blaster is, and just as the cassette bots are launching, check out the colors of the two robots where the cassette bots are. They're both red.
We seem to have two frenzies.
So it's an error there. And also, when we get to rewind and eject, he actually changes color as he jumps out of Blaster and changes from one guy to another.
Yeah, and even though, like, look, don't get me wrong, beautiful animation in this movie, but it is still riddled with animation mistakes, especially in the first half.
Some of them are genuine mistakes. Some of them are just background character model palette swaps. There's quite a few where you're filling out. Imagine watching a war movie. You've got your main characters in the background that just, you can't really see them. They're just generic extras. Sometimes they use the character model for another character and change it to a different color, and it's in the background and small. You're not really meant to even see it. So there's quite a few of those, as well as genuine errors.
So we got to see Rumble and Frenzy. They rip the satellite dish off the communications tower, and then of course we get the great line that we mentioned earlier. It's like, first we crack the shell, then we crack the nuts inside, and he bashes his way through the window. Great moment, and we get that awesome line. As Perceptor's being kind of overrun by the Decepticate bots. Blaster, he kicks Ravage out of the way, and he's like, "No way, two can play." And then he ejects all his little cassette bots, and we got a nice. I love getting to see
all his cassette guys at the same time instead of just one or two.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And then we got a little tussle then between all the little cassette bots, while
you won't see those guys again very often. You'll see Soundwave's ones fairly often, even in season 3 sometimes, but Blaster's ones you hardly ever see. Not only in the Headmasters anime do we really get to see all 4 of them actually together again.
Yeah, and then sometimes, and I know we're probably getting way ahead of ourselves or a little bit off topic, but sometimes in season 3 as well, through other animation mistakes, like sometimes you'll see like Rumble will be randomly standing beside, say, like Galvatron, and he'll be the same size as him. You just appear out of
the
nowhere,
same
and then
size.
he'll be gone again.
My favorite season 3 era is when, right at the start of season 3, Galvatron is missing. They're like, "We're gonna go and find Galvatron." They're like, "Ray, Ray, Ray!" They're all standing in the crowd cheering, and Galvatron's in the crowd cheering to go. Let's go and find Galvatron. It's like, fucking right there, you idiots.
So
it's one of the best ones ever. It's like the Where's Wally books, because it's just a big crowded scene of characters like, there he is.
So we Autobot City totally under fire here. The shit's really hitting the fan. Megatron and the Decepticons, they're easily kind of avoiding the city's defense cannons and flying underneath and just really tearing the place apart. So we see that in a panic, Springer and Cup and RC and Hot Rod, they're trying to get this missile launcher in position so they can start kind of fighting back and use some heavy artillery. But moments before that, we actually see that RC is dragging a couple of dead Autobots, or at least one dead Autobot who is Wheeljack. We see the dead corpse of Wheeljack being dragged into the room by RC. Man. So I'm sure we'll probably end up talking about this. There was tons of material left on the cutting room floor for this film when it came to characters being killed off.
Or pop up for a frame.
But at one point we were going to see a scene where guys like, Wheeljack, Puffer, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, Red Alert, they all would have been massacred basically. But that scene was not included in the final draft of the movie. However, we do see that some elements remained, because it is definitely Wheeljack who's one of the dead bodies you see on the floor. So you can kind of take it verbatim, I suppose, that he was there and he was killed. But anyway, we got a great moment.
One of the challenges of dealing with the thing like a Transformers show or movie is that you've got a cast of over 100 characters. It's like, how many can you really cram into a 90-minute film and have it make sense without feeling like you're just jamming them in there?
You also have the issue that while season 2 was kind of still in the works, this movie was being made. So they were kind of running 2 projects concurrently, which is why people will often ask questions like, oh, like, where is, the Stunticons and where's the aerial bots? And they're there in the background. Don't worry, they're just off camera.
Yeah. Well, they included in the Marvel comics was very generic and only had even less than the film. More than about 20 years later, they didn't. Might be 30, 25 years. They did an IDW comics adaptation where they did include some of the missing characters and the combiners showing a different scene that stuff was going on in another place at the same time, which was cool.
Well, speaking of combiners, we're about to meet one of our favorites here, because the Constructicons, they form Devastator to start smashing through just as the Autobots manage to get the missile launcher into position. So they launch a couple of rockets at Devastator, but it has no effect, and we think he's just going to come crashing through the wall and they're going to meet their ends. But just in time, the shuttle comes from overhead. It's Optimus Prime, and he orders the Dinobots to leap out and destroy Devastator. And now is probably a good time to bring up one of the real head scratchers of this movie. And that is, why the fuck is there only 4 Dinobots? Where is Snarl? I know we're going to see him for like a split second later, but it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
There's your 2 red guys. If you're ever confused about which one is red, they're both red, so there you go.
They're either both Rumble or both Frenzy. Take your pick.
And I love that. I can't not think of like Ultimate Warrior or the wrestling one. It's like,
getting them up for the gorilla press here.
Pretty good.
Poor Sludge is about to go for a ride. But yeah, it's a bizarre thing that I don't know has ever really fully been explained, but you can't not notice this, and that's the fact that
as far as I know, reading the sort of production history across different interviews and podcasts and versions of the script, that's a victim of when one lot's written the script and then it's gone on to someone else, and it just didn't get picked up as far as a continuity error. So really, they should have had all 5 Dinobots, or just not had the Dinobots, because it doesn't make sense to have randomly just have one missing.
Yeah, and as we'll get to in a moment, he's not totally missing. We will actually see him for a split second later on.
Yeah, he just pops out. He's kind of dropping out when they're falling out of the sky, and then he's just gone in the next frame.
So the Dinobots, they go up against Devastator with pretty dismal results, to be honest. Like Grimlock gets kicked midair before he even lands. You know, Sludge gets the shit stomped out of him, then he gets thrown. The only one to get any real offense in on him is Slag, who rams his leg and he kind of falls into the wall. But then, of course, poor Swoop comes in for the dive, and Devastator more or less just knocks a load of rubble on top of him, which takes him out of action. So the Dinobots are
still a badass scene, even though I felt like the Dinobots were underserved, because normally they just kick everyone's ass, but I still feel like it's a badass scene as far as what's going on.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Of course, though, this is all leading to a great moment. You know, Optimus, he steps foot off the shuttle and he gives us that great line of dialogue that Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost.
Awesome tracking shot where they've obviously got a very large animation still frame and they've panned across it with an actual camera or whatever, showing the big like driveway across the hydro dam leading up to the base, and you get the music kicking in, and it's just like shit's on.
It's amazing. And yeah, that music, when you've got the touch, when you hear those notes starting to play, it just kind of swells you with emotion. You just feel great. And it's before you know what's going to happen, definitely as a kid for the first time watching this, I was literally like giddy with excitement watching Prime run over all the Decepticons. I was like, yeah, get him.
It's a very like as a kid, I hadn't seen John Wayne films, but I've watched a hell of a lot of films since then. And now when I see this scene, it reminds me like John Wayne is like, remember the Alamo? It's like you're going out guns blazing, but it's not going to end well.
He's going in all trucks blazing here. He's
exactly. I love all the little perspectives of like the close-ups. You see the transformation of his hands actually going in, which like on some of the toys and that, whether you take them off or pop them in on modern ones. I love when you see the reflection of I always forget the names. Is it who's the red guy? Is it Ramjet? But you see the reflection on the grill, which is like it's cartoon, but it's a silver grill. If it was a real truck, so it's reflecting him smacking into one of the Insecticons, and then that awesome heroic leap where he leaps into the sky. They're like does a big full flip around and comes out with that iron blaster. It's just so epic.
It's so good. That's like Matrix style shooting.
Yeah, before the Matrix.
Taking everybody out.
Kung Fu films.
And you know, going back to what we were saying earlier about these Transformer characters being indestructible sometimes, like because Prime, like he hits every one of those Decepticons, but it's doubtful if he kills any of them, you know, because we see a lot of them still alive later on. Like they're injured, but you know, I guess Prime doesn't always shoot to kill. He's just a good guy.
I just love the way he barrel straight through them though, because he's like, you know, he's on a mission. He doesn't care about the wheat and the chaff. He's going straight for Megatron.
And speaking of Megatron, they come face to face, and we get the whole one shall stand, one shall fall, and Megatron's
and the colors of the shadowing are so beautiful on their faces.
Oh, it's so good, man. It's so good. Like, this is just a really great battle between our good leader versus our bad leader. And, you know, we got kind of tastes of it throughout season 1 and 2, especially in the second episode of season 1, where they kind of fight on the dam and there's the big hodgepodge. But here is just a really brutal, drag out kind of rough
feels
fight.
Like Rocky
really laying it in.
Or any other iconic 80s villains and bad guys.
Of course, Megatron, he vows to crush Prime with his bare hands, but he instantly starts cheating, of course, because he whips out like a lightsaber out of nowhere and like cuts him across the rib cage.
Yeah, it's funny he uses a lightsaber thing, which is at least 3 times I've seen just straight up lightsabers and Transformers. Because, of course, back in the miniseries in the first of the episodes, he had the big flail mace thing that was also purple and Energon would swing around. and comes with a lot of the toys. But here he's just got a straight up lightsaber. It's another Star Wars reference.
Yeah, he really messes Prime up. So he slices him with the saber. He also pretty much like stabs him with a big chunk of like debris that goes right into Prime's side. He really messes him up. But Prime, he's taking the fight to him. He grabs him in a bear hug. He throws him. That's before Megatron, of course, utters that great line of "I'll rip out your optics." Great line from Megatron. He's just so menacing. But yeah, no, Prime, he's giving him it all. He uppercuts him, bear hugs him, throws him. And we think this is going to be it. Megatron is down. Prime sees his cannon lying there. He walks towards it. He picks it up. He points it at Megatron, and Megatron's all like, oh, no more Optimus Prime. Grant me mercy. I beg of you. And the whole time he's kind of eyeing up this blaster that he's seen on the ground. And Prime's like, you who are without mercy, now plead for it. I thought you were made of sterner stuff. And just as Megatron's about to grab the pistol, Hot Rod, he does a run in. He jumps on Megatron. He's like, no, you don't, Megatron. But Megatron easily kind of grabs him in a headlock while simultaneously picking up the pistol. And of course, now he's got a shield, and Prime's like, get out of the way, Hot Rod. But unfortunately, he can't get a shot. So Megatron hits him with a couple of brutal blaster shots that hit Prime right in the kind of the chest and the upper body, or the upper chassis, maybe. I don't even know how you describe physiology on a robot, like whatever. But he hits him right in the cabin with those shots.
Right,
and just as we think Megatron's going to just blow his brains out, Prime musters some last bit of strength, and he gives him a good kind of like a double axe handle, lifting double axe handle, just knocks him off the ledge that they're fighting on. And
it's a good mix Megatron of like cowboy fights and wrestling style fights.
Yeah, they've lots of mix of pro wrestling and judo and good old fashioned brawling. They've learned to work in many territories, have Megatron and Prime. They must have done some time in Japan. They know their stuff. But so yeah, we get this great contrast, because on one side we see Hot Rod, he's running up to Prime. He's like, oh, Optimus, forgive me, and he's checking on him. Whereas we see the complete opposite reaction, where the Decepticons, they all slowly walk towards Megatron, and Starscream just has this great line. He's like, how do you feel, mighty Megatron? And he just picks him right in the gut, just gives him a good old hard pick right in the gut. Pick a con while he's down, that's that's Starscream's motto. But of course, Soundwave, who is always loyal, he picks up Megatron, and Rumble picks up Megatron's, arm cannon for him, and Starscream gives Astro Train the order to transform and take off. So the Decepticons, they retreat, they abandon their attack on Autobot City, and as Cup says, Prime did it. He turned the tide, and he did turn the tide. He single-handedly pretty much took out the entire Decepticon invasion force by himself, and sent them packing. Of course, though, they really, really, really messed up Autobot City, as we'll see in some of these upcoming shots. Like, if Prime had only arrived 10 minutes earlier, maybe, the city would have been fine. But they really did a number on Autobot City here. So, yeah, look, the Decepticons have retreated, and now we're going to go to one of the more harrowing and sad moments of the movie, would you say, Johnny?
Yeah. Where everyone stands around, waits for him to die, doesn't offer him any kind of medical attention whatsoever.
And bear in mind, this is a character who we've literally seen being ripped apart in previous episodes of the series and put back together.
They got turned into that alligator thing. So,
but look, as I suppose in this case, as Perceptor gives us the news, look, the wounds, they are fatal, and Perceptor, he is a scientist, so I guess he's an authority there.
Yeah,
but maybe if Wheeljack, maybe if Wheeljack and Ratchet were still alive, they might have been able to do something there.
Yeah, Wheeljack's more the mechanic, and Perceptor's the guy. If you got some cosmic rust, he's the guy you want on your sword.
So yeah, we got the moment here. We've got Magnus, we've got Hot Rod, we've got RC, Springer, Blur, Perceptor, Daniel. They're all gathered around Prime, and Daniel's like, "Prime, you can't die." And Optimus is all like, "Do not grieve. Soon I shall be one with the Matrix." And if you're anything like me and you're watching this movie as a kid for the first time,
hell's the Matrix?
What the fuck is the Matrix? What does that mean? Is that like the Force? I don't know what that means.
Yeah. It kind of is. It's just a MacGuffin they made up for the film. It didn't exist before this film, but it's become a thing that everything after this was influenced by it.
Well, yeah, it's explained to us pretty quickly what the Matrix is, as Prime opens up his chest, and he passes the matrix of leadership to Ultra Magnus, who himself declares that he's just a soldier and not worthy, but Prime insists. We do get this kind of foreshadowing moment where, as Prime goes to hand the matrix to Magnus, it actually slips from his hand and goes to fall on the floor, but Hot Rod is quick to jump and grab it, and we see him hold it for a split second, and it's a little bit foreshadowing of what's to come later on, but he quickly hands it over to Magnus, who then does an awkward shuffle while he
blows in his hand for a moment.
Yeah, he just doesn't know how to get the matrix to fit in. He's like, "Oh, just trying to get this in here."
And it
won't close. The doors won't close.
It's a funny thing here because we've got all the story elements of the Matrix of the new thing, and it would go on to be both a plot MacGuffin and a sort of spiritual link as far as the Autobots to other leaders, past and future, and other media and such. But also, like, Magnus just has a chamber in his chest for the Matrix, and it's kind of like, well, maybe he was supposed to be the guy that has it, and it just makes you think, well, he was the toy. He was the toy that came before these other characters of the Diaclone line. So that's kind of the other lineage of it too.
That's the thing, and I know I'm getting slightly off topic here, but fuck it, we rarely talk about Transformers, but sometimes maybe you could look back with hindsight and think maybe they should have went for the safe road, down the safe road, and just went with Magnus as the actual leader, purely from a selling toys perspective. He's like, the toy is like Optimus Prime. He's just like a white Optimus Prime.
Yeah, it's the same truck
like a souped up Optimus Prime with missiles and stuff. It just feels like the next logical progression as a toy.
Well, if it had been a Japanese written thing, it would have been Magnus would have been the guy, because he would have been that. They always love their supers and super hyped up robot modes and extra extensions and parts and things for in the Diaclone and other super robot stuff.
By the way, I'm not saying
Hot Rod.
Not
more
me,
like Luke.
I'm not hating on Hot Rod here. I really like the character of Hot Rod. But I'm just saying, I think sometimes maybe from a financial perspective, they may have went in the wrong direction when they chose to be the next leader.
I don't really have an opinion one way or another, but I remember I did an article a couple of years back looking at all the Star Wars references, and as far as your analogs, I mean, RC is Princess Leia, right down to the buns. Hot Rod is Luke. Springer's like Han Solo. And then you got the wise old mentor as Cup, who could be, you could say Optimus or Cup could be Ben Kenobi as far as being a wise old mentor. And then, so I'm not sure about Magnus, though. He doesn't really have a sort of equivalent. But obviously, you got Unicron as the big evil, big bad. Nice close up here of the old chest.
Yeah. His innards there. I'm just going to rip out my heart here and give it to you before I pass away.
So if you had the toy, this is where the Diaclone pilots would have sit. So that's why there's a space there. But in the animation, it's for the Matrix.
And so look, the Matrix is handed over. Magnus is now officially the leader of the Autobots, and we see Prime. The stats on the life support machine, or whatever the hell it's supposed to be when you're a robot, they go blank.
Yeah, it's equivalent like a heartbeat or biometrics, which are off to the side.
So yeah, they forgot to change his oil and he died. I believe was the official cause of death.
And he's the first Transformer in like any kind of cartoon or fiction to turn grey as he died as well. Because the early guys died in kind of smoke, but he actually turns grey. Like they're really selling to you, like, no, he's definitely dead. He's not coming back.
Oh, he's dead. He's dead. He's super dead.
Like if you get a toy of that from Japan, it's actually called Sleep Convoy.
Yes. And our good friend Gojitron actually donated me a little. It's like the Super Seven. It's a little small reaction figure of Sleeping Prime or Dead Prime.
Yeah.
So he's laying down in one of my shelves at the moment. So yeah, so Prime, he dies. Rest in peace until season 3, Optimus Prime, and we get this shot of the interior of Unicron, and it's Unicron's brain, essentially, which consists of all these little TV screens. And of course, Unicron, he's like the eye of Sauron or whatever. He's just like all seeing. He can see everything everywhere. And he sees this Prime has passed away and that the Matrix has been handed over to Ultra Magnus. And seeing this infuriates Unicron. He lets out a big guttural roar, and we don't know why yet this is happening, but we will soon find out why he's so perturbed by this passing of the Matrix. So we quickly cut now to pretty much what my favorite moment in the movie is. Like I've always just loved the next few scenes that take place here. So we're shown the interior of Astro Train, and
a lot of space in there.
Starscream informs the crew. He's like, so first of all, Astro Train's like, you're going to have to jettison some weight, or I'm not going to make it back to Cybertron. Let's not dwell too much on the fact that they are traveling through space, and weight really should not
doesn't
be a
matter.
factor. So we're not going to dwell too much on that. But anyway, Starscream, he relays the message to the rest of the crew. He's like, look, fellow Decepticons, Astro Train has requested that we lighten our burden. And then, of course, we get one of the Constructicons like, well, in that case, I say it is survival of the fittest. So they have a vote, and all the ayes vote in favor of pretty much kicking off all the dead and wounded Decepticons to free up a bit of weight. And we get, this is the reason I love this moment of the movie so much, is because it really just crystallizes how evil and horrible the Decepticons as a group actually are. Because it's pretty harrowing when you kind of really think about it, because you can hear one of the Decepticons being like, "Oh, please, no, don't," as he's being like pushed out the side of the shuttle, and they're just being dropped out into the deep space. They're just being thrown out. And of course, Starscream, he picks up Megatron. He walks him, walks him over to the door, and he's like, "Oh, how it pains me to do this." And Megatron's like, "Wait, I still function." And Starscream's like, "Wanna bet?" And he just lets him go, just lets him right out the airlock and into deep space. And the door closes behind him. We get this great moment. The Starscream, he turns to the rest of the crew and he's like, "Well, as Megatron has, how shall we say, departed, I nominate myself as the new leader." And this just kicks off a really great scene where it's like, "Wait a minute, the Constructicons formed Devastator, the most powerful robot. We should rule."
Yeah,
and
it's
then
always might
Soundwave's
makes
like,
right.
Soundwave superior, Constructicons inferior. We just get this great great moment where all the Decepticons just start battering each other.
Inside Astro Trade. That's like poor Astro Trade. Like smashing them up.
Yeah, if I was Astro Train, I would have just ejected all of them and then become leader.
Like, open the cargo bay doors. Bye, suckers.
I'm the leader now. Just fly back to Cybertron and
he did try to be a leader in season 3 when he takes over an alien planet.
That's right. But yeah, so the Decepticons, are the injured and dead, wounded Decepticons. They're ejected from Astro Train, and we see that they're drifting through space, and Megatron is drifting, and he hears the voice the voice calling Megatron, and they drift into the orbit of Unicron, and we get this great moment where, for the first time, Megatron is meeting Unicron, and Unicron is essentially, and I'm not going to go because I could go and ruin my voice trying to do the dialogue here, but Unicron, he basically makes an offer to Megatron, and he wants him to go after the Autobots and destroy the Matrix. And of course, Megatron, he's boastful. He's like, I've already crushed Optimus Prime with my bare hands. And Unicron's like, no, you exaggerate. And Megatron's like, no, he's dead, and the Matrix died with him. And Unicron once again is like, no, the Matrix has been passed to their new leader, Ultra Magnus, and I want you to destroy it for me. And Megatron he's just bluntly asks him, he's like, why should I? What's in it for me? And then Unicron makes him the offer. He's like, I'll provide you with a new body and new troops to command, and nothing more, because Megatron asks, and then Unicron's like, and nothing. Yeah. So Megatron is actually like, no, I actually don't, I'm not going to go along with this. And Unicron's like, well, fine, proceed on your way to oblivion. And, we think he's just going to eat Megatron and the rest of the Decepticons. But in the last second, Megatron reneges. He's like, no, I accept your terms. So Unicron begins the process of reformatting Megatron into Galvatron. So we've seen great sequence here, brilliant animation sequence, and of course we got to see him change the other Decepticons into Cyclonus and the Sweeps, etc., etc. What did you think of all this when you were watching it for the first time?
It all kind of goes over your head as far as story stuff, but I just remember that the sequence looks amazing. Unicron's so threatening, and he, as Galactus has a Silver Surfer, Unicron has Galvatron to be his herald, to go forth and do his bidding. But the sequence is amazing. Got all those cool vector little graphics behind them and the grids and that skeletal invisible stuff in Megatron. And Megatron goes from a bucket helmet to kind of like a royal kind of purple crown now on his head, and he's still got the theme of he's got his big gun on his arm, but now he transforms into a cannon instead of a gun, so he's still kind of similarly themed. And I remember just thinking, like, this sequence was so badass watching it in the film. And then I saw the toy in the store, and I was like, it makes like weird sounds, and it didn't look as badass as the guy on the screen. And the sweeps look very cool too. They look so menacing. They're kind of like almost like a vampire look with the Nosferatu sort of look to them.
Yeah, they're very badass. I have to say, I always loved the animation design of this new generation of Decepticons. I just love they look very sci-fi and just sleek, and the fact that they're all colored in a shade of purple, which is like the Decepticon gang colors pretty much. So they really tricked them out. And of course, apart from changing the dead Decepticons into Cyclonus and the Sweeps, Unicron also provides them with a brand new starship, which is pretty badass looking.
It disappears really quickly.
Yeah, he just kind of he literally just shits it out the side of the planet. It just appears.
Yeah, mate, this whole ship design, they go on about, I'll give you Galvatron, Cyclonus, Scourge, and your Armada, and but then he has the ship, and we see it for a couple of clips in here. And then in season 3, I think it turns up at least once. And then another episode, it's just a completely different design, a different ship. And then it's just gone forever. And there is a frame later on where Galvatron is riding around inside Cyclonus instead of the ship, which we also saw in the Marvel comic I was talking about the other day. But there's some weird continuity errors, but the sequence itself is amazing and like just so badass and awesome.
And yeah, we won't get too much into the litigation of what character became who. There's constant debate. Yeah, I don't care.
I
I don't
never
care if
cared.
Skywarp
Like
is Scourge or if Thundercracker
my
is like
headcanon
Lucas or
was
whatever.
Megatron retained his personality to become Galvatron. Is so willful. The other guys, as far as I'm concerned, were recycled space junk who got completely wiped out, and it's like you've recycled something into another form. So I've never really cared too much who was what or any of that.
Yeah, same as it never really bothered me. Like you said, it's like Galvatron retains, memories and personality of Megatron, but these other guys, they're just like a blank slate. You're starting from the beginning.
And he also does
time,
famously in season 3 become unhinged and basically mentally ill as a result of the process.
Which is understandable. Definitely understandable. I absolutely love this shot, by the way, this freeze frame of Megatron about to be reformatted.
Something we've never seen before in Transformers. It's like in a sort of skeletal model.
And like as a kid, I thought this was the most like impressive high tech animation I'd ever seen. It was like watching like Tron in animation style.
Yeah, Tron or Gundam, it's like real technical stuff. I mean, it's going for realism and the fantasy thing, seeing these real it's like almost like a technical drawing.
Now we got to another awesome moment and just great moment. It's both funny and kind of sad for me as well, considering who my favorite Decepticon is. But so we go to Cybertron and we're about to see the coronation of Starscream as the new leader of the Decepticons. Of course, we have the Constructicons all lined up, blowing on trumpets. Once again, don't question the fact that these are robots that don't have lungs or breathe air.
Don't
or
have lips or lungs. And I'm pretty sure they're probably in a vacuum environment on that metal place anyway.
Yeah, just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. It doesn't need to make sense.
No.
So we see Starscream. He has a crown placed on his head. He's got a cape. He's got pretty cool looking, like kind of shoulder pads. Looking very regal and badass. He's about to have his big moment. He's about to give us big speech. He literally says, "My fellow Decepticons, as your new leader, and then he's interrupted by the sound of jet engines as Cyclonus approaches and Galvatron jumps out and he gives us that great line, Coronation Starscream. This is bad comedy.
It just makes me think of the Kevin Smith film was like, we're gonna fuck your mothers while you're watching cry like little butchers.
Starscream's like, Megatron, is that you? And he's like, here's a hint. And he just transforms into his Super Cannon mode and absolutely incinerates Starscream. Like it's such a great death in this movie.
Second Transformer to turn grey, and then he crumbles as well.
Oh, he crumbles to ash until all that's left there is like his feet are just there and the crown falls from his head.
Season 3, he comes back as Ghost Starscream and possesses people.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite things about season 3 is the ghost of Starscream, because I was probably more upset about Starscream being killed off than Prime. I was like, no, not Starscream.
He kind of became immortal because he became a ghost, and it's like, well, can robots have ghosts? I don't know, but then he just can't die because he's a ghost and keeps possessing people.
So Starscream is dead. Galvatron is now asserted himself as the rightful leader of the Decepticons. And we get the all hail Galvatron chant from the cowardly Decepticons that have just witnessed
like, don't shoot me
obliterated. And we quickly cut to Moonbase 1, where we see this Unicron is approaching, and Jazz and Cliffjumper are there. They're like, what's going on here? They try to escape, but their ship is sucked in to the maw of Unicron, and we don't know what's happened to them, whether they're dead or alive. We don't know that yet. So we cut back to Earth, where the surviving Autobots are trying to repair and rebuild Autobot City. And Blaster receives a communication from Moonbase 2, which is where Spike and Bumblebee are stationed, and they're letting the guys on Earth know, look, there's this massive planet that's after destroying Moonbase 1. It's heading right for us here at Moonbase 2. We're going to try and slow it down, and before they can continue the rest of the transmission, they just get cut off. So Ultra Magnus, he's kind of like, what the hell's going on? And we cut back to Moonbase 2, and Unicron, he's in the beginnings of devouring the moon. So Bumblebee and Spike, they rig up some explosives.
Hello.
And Spike says the line, "Hey Pedro, I think my kitty's here." There's who's that? There's Brutus there.
Yeah, I saw one of your boys crawling around.
So
he's running up to the door and going tap tap tap.
So Spike, he gives us the line, if this doesn't stop him, nothing will. So they plant the explosives, they armed them, they timed them, they get the hell out of there, and we see the timer on the explosives counting down, gets to 0, the bomb goes off, but Unicron is not damaged. He's not even dented, and we get the great line from Spike of, "Oh shit, what are we going to do now?" Just as their ship is
Yeah, I love
pulled
the
into the
swearing.
gravitational field, and they are also then sucked into Unicron. So yeah, exciting times ahead here. We've just seen the destruction of both Moonbase 1 and 2. What can I say? Moonbase 1 and 2, we hardly knew you because you definitely weren't in the original series as far as I can remember.
Frank Zappa won't be happy at all about any of it.
Yeah. Funny how I don't remember seeing those 2 moons and all the other episodes you went to Cybertron on. But once again,
I just figure they must have had to. I mean, if the Decepticons are occupying Cybertron, they must have to hang out somewhere, I guess, and have a little boys' club. Might as well hang out on the moon.
Especially since they can't invent their own space bridge technology for some reason.
No, they're useless. They're not good at. Well, Wheeljack's dead, so who's going to invent anything now?
So we get back to Autobot City on Earth. Ultra Magnus, he's rallying the remaining Autobots. He's like, "Look, this new menace is probably more powerful than anything we've ever dealt with. We need to, travel to Cybertron and find out what happened to, Spike, Daniel, Cliff Jumper, Jazz."
There's some more fun little kind of plot nonsense here, where the distance from Earth to Cybertron is usually quite a distance, but all of a sudden they just zip, we're right over there. We didn't need a Mega Supreme or nothing.
Yeah. Well, look, between 1985 and 2005, they invested in some decent shuttles. It turns out they were just using bad quality shuttles, Speaking of Omega Supreme, where the hell
shuttle
was
Omega always crash for some reason?
So just before Ultra Magnus can kind of establish a clear plan on how to deal with this new menace of Unicron, the Decepticons attack, and it's our brand new shiny Decepticons led by Galvatron, who's flying in Cyclonus. Once again, don't dwell too much on the fact that one giant robot can fit comfortably inside the cockpit of another giant robot who, when transformed into robot mode, is the exact same size as the robot who just sat inside him. Don't question that. Don't even think about it. It's just something that happens in Transformers. So
indeed,
the Decepticons, they're attacking what's left of Autobot City. There's a real scramble to get on the shuttles. Blur is having trouble getting the Dinobots on board, so Hup and Hot Rod are left with the task of getting the Dinobots on board their own shuttle and escaping. Meanwhile, Magnus, Springer, Blur, Perceptor, and RC and Daniel board the other shuttle. So both shuttles, they take off. They manage to briefly escape before they're quickly caught up with by the Decepticons. It's one of those things where it's like Magnus has a line like, "Oh, you can rest easy, Autobots. We lost them." It's like you literally just took off and left the atmosphere, and they have their own ships. Why do you think they're not going to chase you?
Yeah, bloody fool. Yeah, we see. There's one of the stills where you can see Galvatron's inside Cyclonus there.
Yeah, you just don't question it. You know, it doesn't need to make physical
sense. But then by the time they get to the other planets and such, then they're inside the bigger ship. So at some point he got out of Cyclonus into the bigger ship. But yeah, it's a confusing, chaotic bunch of scenes here with all this destruction going on, and we're getting away, evacuating here. But before we know it, we've got two parallel scenes of people crashing or arriving on different places around the same sort of time. And before we jump on to the next one, we'll do a little commercial break, which runs for about 5 minutes. It's got some silly music, and it's going to play some actual ads, including a Transformers ad, some stuff in there, and then we're back in about 5 minutes' time.
Cool.
I heard you were big time in the old pop biz. Well, I'm going to take that as a no comment. So, nitty-gritty time. What I'm talking about, and you're not, is that more people prefer the new, refreshing taste of Coke over Pepsi. Sweating? It's true. More people are, as we Cokeologists say, catching the wave. Catch it if you can. Catch the wave. Coke. Hi. This is the next Headroom Pop Quiz. Line hold, please.
Transformers the Movie, the 30th Anniversary Edition, is now on DVD and for the first time on Blu-ray. Who's Unicron? A planet that devours everything in its path. Autobots, Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost. Such heroic nonsense. The 30th Anniversary Edition is mastered from a stunning new 4K transfer. Plus brand new bonus features.
When I did this one line that fans seem to remember and like, there was an eruption of cheers and applause.
Transformers the Movie, the 30th Anniversary Edition.
One shall stand,
one shall fall.
Now available on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital download.
Else like it.
Friday on 2, revenge is sweet.
Brace yourself. This time it's gonna be good.
Bud is getting his own bag, and everybody suffers.
I owe you a skinny dip. What do you say?
Then meet Dr. Destruction.
Your turn, big guy! What? No, wait, no!
The doctors get competitive.
They called me Charlie Brown.
Dr. Doctor at 10 after Married with Children, Friday.
I've got another idea, but I'm not telling you.
Good morning, class. Cookology. The study of good taste. In fact, the taste that stands the test.
Yes.
The test where new Coke takes on Pepsi, i.e.
That's as in?
The new Coke Pop Quiz. Cokeologist. All others pay attention.
When Coke did take on Pepsi in nationwide tests, more people chose Coke over Pepsi. Prove it to yourself. You'll see why more people are choosing the taste of Coke. Catch the wave. Coke.
I think that was a point in Max Headroom TV show. Not to be subversive, but to sell me soda.
Well, I do prefer Coke to Pepsi, but I made that decision myself. Max Headroom did not influence me in any way.
Not one iota.
I'm not going to question how some of that music is going to be able to be played on YouTube. I'm sure our lawyers have already negotiated.
I did sample uploads yesterday, so they're fine. Like it says you're allowed to use them, you just can't like monetize them and that.
Yeah. Well, look, our legal team made sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed on that one.
Yeah, well, I because we did that Mad Max, I kept thinking about that. We don't need another here. I'm like, take that, Hot Rod.
So yeah. So before we get in, so yeah, as you mentioned, we got a moment now where we're essentially going to be splitting into two groups of heroes. They're both going to crash land on the different planets. But just before we got to that moment and before the Decepticons attack, what do you think of Hot Rod having his own little lightsaber and a shield and sparring with that robot? I always thought that was something kind of interesting that we never saw again. Or, you know, that I thought it was pretty cool, like, because Hot Rod, he's got his own lightsaber, which glows yellow, but he's also got a shield with his kind of fiery logo on it.
It's a cool sequence, but to me, it's just straight up out of Star Wars with Luke on the Millennium Falcon. Like, there's nothing else that's from in cinematic history. It just is from that. I don't know any other reason why someone came up with that. Because it's a battle droid he's practicing with, whereas in Star Wars, it's that little sphere thing that floats around. Here it's a full-size robot, but it just is that scene where he's the young guy who's practicing while they're in a ship traveling to another destination. But yeah, it's a cool little scene. But it's like the Megatron, where he just randomly has a lightsaber. Or if you watch the Headmasters, there's an episode where Bruticus and the Raiden train combiners have a lightsaber fight for no particular reason, including the actual sound effects as well.
You think there's something a bit, and I don't want to get too distracted here, but do you think there's something a little bit weird about sentient robots keeping maybe not as sentient robots as kind of slaves and sparring partners? I thought the Autobots were all about freedom and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's a little weird. You have to assume that bot didn't have any kind of intelligence, or it was just a computer.
I hope so. He does give Hot Rod a cheap shot.
At least in the Marvel comic, that practice droid kicks Hot Rod on the butt and knocks him off his feet.
So yeah, Cup and Hot Rod, they try and dodge the onslaught of the Decepticons, which they do successfully for a little while. You know, they invert their polarities. They're able to dodge the heat-seeking missiles in space, which is another thing
you learned that from Scotty.
So, but Galvatron, he sends Cyclonus out, and Cyclonus hits some sweet shots on the shuttle, which causes them to crash land on an unusual planet, which we will later find out is the planet Quintessa, but we didn't have a name for it yet in the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Cup and Hot Rod, they crash land on Quintessa while the other shuttle is damaged. They have to kind of fake essentially that their shuttle is destroyed. Galvatron launches a shit ton of missiles just as Ultra Magnus kind of evacuates the emergency escape section of the shuttle. So they allow 3/4 of the shuttle to be destroyed so they can escape in the front part, and they end up crashing on the junk planet. So we've now a situation where we've got our two groups of heroes. They're split apart. One's crashed on one planet and another group's crashed on another, and now we're going to see how everything unfolds. So first of all, we get to see Cup and Hot Rod. They've managed to somehow land underwater on their planet, and we see Hot Rod. He's all tangled up in like these underwater vines. There's a great moment where he gets his chainsaw to come out of his arm, and he just starts like hacking away. And he's kind of also being attacked by these weird kind of piranha-like robot fish. So he's slicing them up as well. He goes looking for Cup, who we see is kind of wrestling with this like underwater robotic giant squid. So Hot Rod, he takes care of the squid. He blows his eye hole out with his arm cannons, and he manages to get Cup rescued and out of the water. And the whole time, I'm really not doing this scene justice. I'm kind of running through it, but the whole time the scene is going on, we get the awesome piece of music. Nothing's going to stand in our way. I think it's from Inspector General. Great piece of music playing the entire time the scene is going on. So yeah, we get to see Hot Rod rescue Cup from the water, and then we switch, I believe, back over to is it the planet of junk? Yeah, we get to see that the other Autobots on their shuttle, they've awoken, they've come out, they see that they're in a planet that just looks like a total shithole. There's just junk everywhere. So they begin repairing the ship while silently being spied on by some menacing looking aliens, which will turn out to be junk people. So what were your initial kind of impressions, I suppose, first of all, of the Quintesson planet
like,
and then the junk planet?
Well, as far as like different sequences in the films and characters and what's going on here, we've got Junkions, we've got Quintessa, we've got Planet of the Junk, we've got the Elicons, Sharkticons, Quintesson Judge, Quintesson Executioner. There's a whole bunch of just new character designs and concepts going on here, most of which designed by the old Flo Dairy by contract and such. But I feel like this is where we really get to know more of the new characters: Hot Rod, Cup, Blur, Magnus, and we get to sort of know them a bit and see them sort of under pressure and get a time for them to sort of shine outside and away from all the regular traditional characters. And probably as a kid, like, I mean, I love all the sequences in this film, but probably these sequences here are probably some of my favorites. Really, just I love all these character designs. I love the worlds and the execution pit from the Quintessons, and I love the world of junk, and then on top of that, we get some Dinobots coming in towards the end. It's like, here's our new guys, but here's some of our cool old school guys coming in, giving the support, going, you know, it's like seeing new generation on wrestling. It's like, well, here's Bret Hart, but you know, now he's getting the back. Roddy Piper's saying, you're okay, you're on your way, you're the new guy, you got to take it and go on, you know. It feels like a really cool part of the film to me.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. So, yeah, switching back to the Quintessa, Hot Rod, he's repaired the damage to Cup. Cup does complain that he's left a piece out, but he also compliments Hot Rod on really fixing him up well. And it's kind of our the first time the whole movie where Cup's actually gone easy and complimented Hot Rod. Like each time they've interacted so far, it's always been kind of Cup basically telling Hot Rod off for being young and brash. But now we're seeing that he's
being the mentor figure, whereas here it's like, no, we're in this shit, and it's like do or die.
You know, Hot Rod, he did come through, he did rescue him from the squid, and he did successfully repair him. So it definitely he earned some respect in Cup's eyes. So they're walking along this weird looking planet, and it really is a really weird and oddly designed planet. One thing I should probably take note, and maybe it's something once again you shouldn't think too much about in Transformers, but do you ever notice in Transformers that characters tend to like crash into planets instead of like crash land on planets and like go through an atmosphere or anything like that? Like it looks during that Decepticon chase that the shuttle more or less just crashes right on a planet, like it's crashing on like the surface of a lake or a field or something, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, once again, it's not something we shouldn't be getting distracted. So yeah, Cup and Hot Rod, they're wandering along in this bizarro world planet, and they come across a kind of a lake of green water, and all these robots emerge from it, and Hot Rod goes to draw his weapon, but Cup cuts him off, and he's like, "Don't act hostile. We're going to use the universal greeting."
Yes.
And Hot Rod's like, "The universal greeting, you know, what's that?" And Cup's like, "Don't worry, you just watch. I'm going to have them eating out of my hands." So Cup, he approaches the Alicons, and he's like, "Ba weep gra na weep ninny bong," and then all the Alicons repeat back, "Ba weep gra na weep ninny bong." And then Cup's like, turns to Hot Rod, he's like, "You see, the universal greeting works every time." So then he's like, "Look, without making any sudden moves, we're going to offer them an Energon goodie." So they offer them some Energon goodies, which the Alicons quickly eat, and then they demand more, but the guys don't have any more to give them. So the Alicons turn pretty nasty, and they transform into their alligator mode, and they drag Cup and Hot Rod back to this kind of large facility that they seem to be based in. And of course, we also see the whole time that this is going on that there is a tiny little peach colored Autobot that we have not yet been introduced to, who seems to be watching this. Of course, we'll eventually, or pretty soon, actually find out that this is Wheelie, but as of yet, we don't know who he is. But anyway, Cup and Hot Rod, he's wheelie good. So Cup and Hot Rod, they get dragged off, and we are introduced to the Quintessons. And I have to say, I love the Quintessons, especially in the movie. I just love the idea of these really messed up characters with their kind of reverse view on justice and law,
and their weird organic tentacles. It's like they've experimented on themselves.
They're really really bizarre looking, and they each have 5 faces. They float along. Yes, they've got their long, weird, organic looking tentacles. And Cup and Hot Rod, they get chucked in a jail cell, and they're watching
Japanese robots.
Yeah. A bunch
I forget
of
which ones, but they're actually specific robots from certain 70s, 80s iconic animes. But I can't remember which ones saved my life.
So as Cup and Hot Rod are being kind of brought in here, we get to see that there's an unknown robot is on trial, and we don't know what exactly he's been brought in for. He's already taken the stand, and he's kind of hovering. He's kind of suspended above the Sharkticon pit, and you know, we hear the line, you know, guilty or innocent, and the Quintesson judge is like, innocent, feed him to the Sharkticons. So we see this poor robot get dropped in and devoured, and you know, Cup and Hot Rod, they're watching all this, and they're like, you know, what is this place? And then all of a sudden, we see Kranix, who we saw in the opening moments of the movie. He's in the cell next to them, and he explains to them that they're on the world of the savage Sharkticons and their cruel masters, the Quintessons. And Cup and Hot Rod are like, okay, so who are you? And Kravix is like, look, I'm Kravix. My planet was destroyed by Unicron. And from here, Cup and Hot Rod are able to work out that Unicron must be the name of the planet that's been going around eating the moons and doing all that other bad stuff. So they put 2 and 2 together in that respect. But before Kranix can explain any more to them, the guards come in, they drag him out of his cell. He's put on the stand, and we get the same spiel from the Quintessons again, you know, guilty or innocent. And Kranix is like, spare me this mockery of justice. And the Quintesson's like, I repeat, guilty or innocent. And it's like, innocent. Feed him to the Sharkticon. So Kranix gets dropped in and gets absolutely devoured while Cup solemnly looks out the jail cell window and says, in the end, I would have wished for that. So it's pretty brutal scenes unfolding here on the Quintesson homeworld. And we also see that while this is going on, the Dinobots, who have also crash landed because they were on the shuttle with Cup and Hot Rod, they've been wandering through this strange land. They don't have a clue where they're going. And this is where they first come across Wheelie. Wheelie kind of hops up. He gives them a few rhymes. Of course, they hate him. Like we, the audience, also hate him. I'm only joking.
Yeah.
I have no problem with Wheelie.
One of 3 rhyming Autobots.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So Grimlock, he's pretty pissed off at him at the beginning. He kind of hits him off the top of Sludge's head, and you think he's going to stomp him, but Wheelie quickly whips out a little Energon kind of slingshot. Grimlock's like, oh, you hit me on the nose. Why, boy, hit my nose? And they quickly become friends, and Wheelie takes them along, and no doubt he's going to show them where Cup and Hot Rod are imprisoned. But before we get to that, we cut to Galvatron, who's traveled back to Unicron. He wants to know why Unicron is still kind of mentally punishing him, because he thinks that he's already killed Ultra Magnus and destroyed the Matrix, but Unicron informs him that in fact the Matrix has not been destroyed, and this Ultra Magnus and the Autobots are still alive, and he tells them they're on the planet of Junk. So they set sail, or they set course for the planet of Junk.
Yeah, it's like Galvatron is Unicron's bitch, and then he gets the Matrix, and he's like, oh, he wants to make Unicron his bitch, but it doesn't work out for either of them. It doesn't work out well.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see what happens when he attempts this. So the lads on the planet of Junk, they've begun the repairs on the shuttle. Everything seems to be going to plan when all of a sudden the Decepticons show up and just start blowing the piss out of everything, and they destroy what's left of the shuttle. So now the Autobots have no way off the planet as far as they are aware. So there's a bit of a chase, and Springer, RC, Perceptor, Blur, and Daniel, they manage to kind of make it into this alcove, and Magnus very bravely decides to kind of shoot out the entrance, so they're kind of trapped inside, and he decides to face off against the Decepticons by himself. Now, unfortunately for Magnus, he believes this is their darkest hour, and he attempts to use the matrix of leadership to fend off the Decepticons. However, he can't get it to open, and this will prove to be a fatal mistake, as Galvatron demands that Magnus hand over the matrix to him, and Magnus is like, no, never. So Galvatron gives the order. He's like, sweeps, exterminate him. So he pretty much gets like the kind of doing that Murphy gets in RoboCop, just a bunch of bad guys just blowing the piss out of him, and they blow his arms off and blow his legs off, and they really do a number on him. But perhaps, Johnny, you might be so good as to explain to our listening audience. Magnus, of course, in no time at all is going to be able to be put back together again. Why is it that he's able to be put back together in such a way, unlike Optimus Prime earlier on in the movie?
I can't explain it to this day. I still find it kind of comical, because in the storyboards, he was drawn and quartered by the sweeps, which is in the Marvel comic. In the movie, it's abbreviated. They just shoot him because it was deemed as too violent for a kid's movie to actually draw and quarter a robot. But yeah, he just gets put back together, just like an action figure. You move to Origins and pop off some limbs and put them back on. Junkions just fix them up, no trouble. Optimus Prime can't do that for him. It's a bit of a logical inconsistency in the film that they can just fix him after he gets completely blown to pieces and his whole head's flying off and everything, and yet Optimus dies after getting shot a couple of times. So there's no real explanation. It just looks cool in the film.
They should have flown a few of the Junkians back to Earth after the movie and just got them to fix Optimus.
Yeah.
Give him a fresh coat of paint, everything be fine.
I think the Junkions are on one of those pay TV networks. You go on like the body shop, do custom cars and all that. Whatever you want, it's all rusted to shit, and they'll fix it up and make it like new.
So as far as we, the viewing audience, are aware, Ultra Magnus has now been killed, and
he was probably dead at that moment.
Galvatron is now in possession of the Matrix, and Galvatron, he has the Matrix in his hand, and he's like, Unicron, my master.
So, I'll get you there, sucker.
With this, I shall make you my slave. And Unicron is not too happy, hearing this at all. But anyway, before we can get to that, we cut back to the Quintesson homeworld, the planet Quintessa, and Cup and Hot Rod. They're up on the stand. They're about to be sentenced, and they're muttering away to themselves. They're trying to work out a plan to escape, and the Quintesson judge is like, silence, or you will be held in contempt of this court. And then Hot Rod's like, I have nothing but contempt for this court, which is a great line. Absolutely great line.
Court.
So, of course, both Cup and Hot Rod are declared innocent, which is an instant death penalty on this planet. So they're dropped into the water where the Sharkticons are. And unlike the other defenseless robots that have been dropped in, Cup and Hot Rod are transformers who can transform into vehicles, and they use that to their advantage by transforming into their car modes, and they go at such a speed that they cause a mini whirlpool to happen in the Sharkticon tank, and they're able to
have wheels.
Yes, good thing that they can drive perfectly underwater.
Flight mode, but you can't fly underwater.
Kranich got a die instantly mode.
Yeah.
So Cup and Hot Rod, they managed to escape the Sharkticon tank, the Sharkticon pit, and they go on a demolition derby. They're running over Sharkticons left and right. Cup in a great moment
punches that one in the teeth, man.
Oh yeah, just busts his Hot Rod just busts the teeth of that guy, and then of course Cup he rips the tail off one. He's using it as like a mace. He's like flinging it around, and of course though there's hundreds and hundreds of Sharkticons, and there only is 2 Autobots. So just as they're about to be overrun and overcome, there's a big bang. The door, the big kind of door that they entered through earlier on, smashes open, and in comes.
This is my moment where a kid man's like, here's my guy Grimlock coming in, busted in like something out of a King Kong movie with that framing.
Yeah, here comes 4 out of the 5 Dinobots here to rescue Cup and Hot Rod. And of course, they're accompanied by Wheelie.
4 out of 5 ain't bad.
But it's very satisfying to see the Dinobots like smash up the Sharkticons.
POV through his mouth and teeth. Like, how cool is that?
Oh, it's awesome. Awesome. So they smash the absolute shit out of a few of the Sharkticons before the Sharkticons just ultimately kind of give up. They're just like,
they're like,
okay,
so
you guys win.
And they're like Grimlock is like a big apex predator with bigger jaws, and it's like, I think we'll listen to him.
And they do listen to him, because when the Quintessons try and order, the Quintessons try and tell the Sharkticons to execute them, but Grimlock stomps his foot and he says, "No, me Grimlock say you execute them," and this just causes an instant revolt among the Sharkticons. So the Sharkticons they start massing and trying to attack their Quintesson masters, and Cup and Hot Rod are introduced to Wheelie, who points out to them that one of the large structures attached to the Quintesson base is actually a ship. So now they have a ship that they're able to escape the planet on. So it's good news for them. And just that whole moment we just witnessed with Cup and Hot Rod escaping the Sharkticon pit, and then the rescue by the Dinobots and subsequent revolt of the Sharkticons towards the Quintessons. It's a great moment.
Oh, I love it. And like rewatching it, I kind of feel bad for the Sharkticons, because they clearly do just like a slave race. They're just like chucked into this Roman gladiatorial pit and told to do things. And they're very animalistic and kind of simple-minded. So I feel bad for them, really.
Yeah, I have a lot of time for them myself, and they're a pretty cool design of
they're great
creature bot. So we switch locations once again back to the planet of junk, where RC, Springer, Perceptor, Blur, they're looking at the pieces that are left of Ultra Magnus, and they're very upset. The Matrix, as far as they know, is gone, and there's no hope at all, as Blur blurts out. And just as they're coming to terms with what has happened to Ultra Magnus, all of a sudden they are set upon by the junk people. Rakgar and his crew, they appear out of nowhere, and they just kind of start attacking them, because as far as they are concerned, they are invaders and not welcome here on the junk planet.
You know what I love in this sequence? Because here's a movie where earlier in the film we get Dare. Now we get Dare to be stupid. Where the hell? So good.
We get some Weird Al, and it's a great wee song, and it suits the scene.
Yeah,
and
I've got it on my Weird Al greatest hits on the CD up by the in the kitchen here when I make dinner. I often put it on.
So we actually got a nice little musical interlude here, where we get to see some action between the Junkions and the surviving Autobots, where the Junkions they're transforming into motorbikes with sidecars and stuff, and then one of them will get knocked down, and they'll ride each other. That doesn't sound bad at all, but it's just
which you can do with the modern toys. You can transform one into the bike and have the other ride it, which is nice.
We also get a nice moment between Springer and Rakgar, where they have a little sword fight, where Springer is using the blades of his chopper mode as a sword to fend off Rakgar with his axe. And just as we think that all hope is lost and these remaining Autobots are going to succumb to these junk people, out of nowhere, Quintesson's ship lands, and out steps Hot Rod and the Dinobots. And just as we think shit's going to kick off again, Hot Rod, having listened to Cup's words of wisdom earlier on, he approaches Rakgar and he gives him the universal greeting of Ba Weep Grana Weep Ninny Bong, gives him an Energon goodie, and this time it works.
It's like a little dog snack, because it's not the cubes we know in the show, it's these little slivers. Same with the Helicon scene.
So Rakgar, he accepts the token and the gesture of goodwill, and they all become friends. They're dancing around, and Rakgar
this is the yub scene from the Ewoks where they'll dance around. We thought we were cannibals, they're going to kill you, but now we're going to have a dance scene instead.
And not only are they no longer going to kill the Autobots, they're also going to repair Ultra Magnus. Rakgar orders his Junkion subordinates to go pick up the pieces of Magnus.
Willie gets in some breakbeat b-boy dancing.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Dancing with young Daniel. I'm sure they'll become fine friends. Yeah, the Sharkticon's teeth got fucked up. Great view there. Look at how clean that animation is as well. Really beautiful.
Look at that. I mean, that's just on a crappy screen here. If you watch this on the proper TV and Blu, it's absolutely crisp. There's no fuzz or nothing. It's so beautiful.
So Magnus, he's been repaired. He's gotten a new coat of paint, and he's been shined up and waxed, which is all he really needed. It got him back up and running again. But look, there's obvious disappointment because the Matrix has been taken, and Hot Rod just has this gut feeling that they're going to need the Matrix to destroy Unicron, which is just as well, because the Matrix is currently with Unicron, as we're going to see now in a moment. So both the Autobot.
I watched all those old Hitchcock films. There's going to be a MacGuffin coming up, so we better pay attention.
Well, look, as MacGuffins go, the Matrix is a pretty good MacGuffin for how it actually does work out in the end. But so look, the remaining Autobots and the Junkions, they set off together. The Junkions have their own kind of junk ship that they take off in, and the rest of the crew take off in the commandeered Quintesson ship. So we quickly put back to Unicron, and Galvatron has approached him. He has the Matrix around his neck on a chain. and he's like, Unicron, see
just
this.
some like 80s rapper or something. It's just like hanging around my neck.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of bling, you know. And Galvatron, he's like, look, I now possess that which you most fear, and this drives Unicron crazy. He gets really angry, and Galvatron is like, look, you're going to do my bidding or you're going to taste my wrath. And he goes to open the Matrix. He can't do it. It won't open for him. So we get the great line of, you underestimate me, Galvatron. And Unicron begins his transformation. And this is just one of those
things. It's an amazing sequence. It's so good. This is where you really feel that like all your 70s, 80s robot mecha anime stuff and super robots, like those almost fetishistic detail and close-ups of cylinders and bits and parts moving, and Gundam and Yusha and all the super robots. It's just like so beautiful to watch and so well animated, and it feels believable. It actually gets from that planet mode to the robot mode.
Yeah, and obviously it takes a relatively long time for him to transform because he's planet size, but we just get great reveal when you see that the hand forms and like the legs coming out, the arms forming, until we finally get the reveal of the devil-like head with his big devil horns and green eyes. It's just an amazing reveal. And of course, he just picks Galvatron up like he's a little bug and just goes,
you see the actual scale there, and one of the bits where Galvatron is like an ant on the surface.
Yeah. And Unicron, once again, it's one of those things you don't want to dwell on it too much. He changes sizes kind of multiple times throughout the movie. Like sometimes he's as big as Cybertron, other times he's a little bit smaller, you know.
And Cybertron is pretty small compared to like Earth and that. It's almost like a size of a moon compared to Earth. It's really tiny.
But anyway, we're building to our big finale here. We have Hot Rod and the rest of the Autobots approaching into two ships. Meanwhile, Unicron, he's just transformed into robot mode and he starts wrecking Cybertron. Literally, his first strike is to bring his massive hand down and just like crush one of the cities.
Yeah.
And this
you see Shockwave just in that moment. So it's like, is Shockwave dead? I'm not sure.
Well, you know, well, this is where it comes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of our broadcast today. Cybertron is totally inhabited by Decepticons, and we actually do get to see some very brief moments of what that looks like. We see kind of streets with like tons of Decepticons running down the street and like scrambling around. We also see multitudes of the old style Seekers being launched from the planet. They're all like attacking Unicron and flying into him. He's like crushing them in his mouth and like, you know, batting them away like they're gnats. It's a really great moment. It's kind of nice as well to see that the Decepticons, like, they didn't just kind of roll over and let the planet be taken. Like, they really do kind of go all out to defend the planet, which is kind of a nice moment just to see the Decepticon army kind of giving a bit back, even if they are being absolutely pummeled by Unicron. So the two ships full of Autobots are approaching the scene, and you know, Pup sees this giant robot attacking Cybertron, and Hot Rod's like, "Oh, doesn't this remind you of anything, Cup?" You know, he's like, "No, lad, I've never seen anything like this before." So they begin their attack. The Junkion ship is kind of taken out of it pretty quickly by Unicron's energy blasts, whereas Hot Rod steers the Quintesson ship straight into one of Unicron's eyes, literally smashes it right through his eye. Great moment, great. And you literally see Unicron holding his eye, like grabbing it, like, because it would be very painful, obviously, if a little tiny spike got rammed into your eye. So yeah, they crash through and they abandon the ship. And from what I recall, Springer, RC, Perceptor, Blur, and Daniel get split off from Hot Rod. Hot Rod falls down a different shaft.
Yeah.
So once again, our characters are kind of split apart from each other. So while Springer, RC, and Cup and them kind of wander the corridors within Unicron's body, and they're being chased down by all these what I suppose you could call like Unicron's natural immune system working against these
Yeah, it's got
invading
all sorts of weird stuff.
antibodies. But Hot Rod, he's away from that action. He's wandering the corridors alone by himself, and all of a sudden he comes across the light of the Matrix. He recognizes its glow, and as he goes closer and approaches, he realizes obviously it's around the neck of Galvatron. And Galvatron tells him, will do you no good, Autobot. It cannot be opened. And Hot Rod's like, well, not by a Decepticon. And Galvatron, he actually goes to extend the olive branch. He says, look, like it or not, we are allies now against a common foe. And just as you think there's a chance that they actually might work together, of course, Unicron does this whole fucking torture thing where he's like, destroy him, Galvatron, now, or you two will be obliterated. So Galvatron, who, as you mentioned, he is Unicron's
Unicron
bitch.
has some sort of mind control over Galvatron as well.
Yeah. Well, look, as Megatron, he did state that he belonged to nobody, but unfortunately, he actually does belong to Unicron. He is he's his biatch.
Yep.
So anyway,
like
this kicks off.
Surfer. He's got his portion of his power, so he's he's under his thrall.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's a great analogy. Those two characters. So Galvatron, he starts shooting at Hot Rod, which is going to kick off a fight between them. But in the meantime, we cut back to the battle that's raging on outside of Unicron's body between him and Cybertron and the opposing Autobots and Decepticons. We see the Dinobots are once again 4 out of the 5 Dinobots. They're attacking Unicron. They're dodging his blasts, and they transform into Dinobot mode, and like Grimlock's like kicking a hole in his side, and like Sludge is like slamming him with his tail, Slag like is blaming him, and Swoop is launching missiles at him. But of course, Unicron just brushes them away like they're nothing, and Unicron is like, or Grimlock's like, me Grimlock need new strategy, which is true. He does. So the Dinobots retreat briefly to rethink their ways. That's a great shot here of Unicron about to just smash Cybertron.
Speaking of smashing, there's those feet.
Stomp, 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 stomp. So yeah, we back inside the bowels of Unicron here. As we mentioned, his natural antibodies there, he's trying to get rid of these invading viruses that have gotten inside him in the form of the Autobots. So Daniel is split off from the main group when RC accidentally shoots like a hole in the side of one of the corridors, and loads of water spills out, and so the two are split apart. Daniel, he ends up in a different corridor where he stumbles across this giant kind of, I don't even know how you describe this. It's like a big vat of like molten material.
It's like a smelting pool.
Exactly. Perfect description. Like a big smelting pool, and robots are being dropped into it. You're led to believe that these are survivors of planets that Unicron's already consumed, and they just get put on this conveyor belt to be like melted down and consumed. But we get to see a couple of kind of unknown or unnamed Autobots bite the dust before Daniel actually gets close. We see them kind of being dropped into the smelter and getting melted, and pretty graphic. You hear them screaming while their like faces are being burned off.
Nasty.
So we see here that on the conveyor belt about to be smelted is Daniel's father Spike, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, and Jazz are also there. So Daniel, he's in a panic. He's like, Dad, what do I do? And Spike's like, look, just use your exosuit to blast off to blast the lid closed. And Daniel, he's all panicked because he's never done it before, and it's a real tense moment where we think they're going to be dropped in. But yeah, there he is. Just at the last moment, he works out how to transform his arm into the arm cannons, and he gets off a lucky shot, and it's enough to bring the lid down on the smelting yoke. And thankfully, they all fall on the lids one by one, and they're saved. So Daniel, he saved the day for his father and a few of those Autobots. So good for him.
And I will say,
he did some
of
good.
all the different Transformers media, movies, and cartoon shows, these humans are the least annoying and the most helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So we cut back to the battle between Hot Rod and Galvatron, and we get some real nice moments where like Hot Rod, he's transforming into his car mode. He's like doing hit and run tactics, literally trying to run over Galvatron and take shots at him from a distance. Eventually, though, Galvatron does manage to get his hands on him, and he
they don't
gives him the
breathe.
same line. Yeah, because he does give him that same line he gave Optimus as Megatron earlier. It's like, I will crush you with my bare hands. But yeah, like you said, they don't breathe, but he does seem to be choking him pretty violently, and Hot Rod seems to be struggling to breathe. So, once again, we don't question these things, but in the middle of this scrap, Hot Rod manages to break the Matrix loose from the chains around Galvatron's neck, and in that moment, he's able to unleash the power of the Matrix. We hear the voice of Optimus Prime say, "Rise, Rodimus Prime," and we see Hot Rod undergo this transformation. He grows taller and wider, and he becomes Rodimus Prime. The power of the Matrix transforms him, and Galvatron, he doesn't know what's going on. He tries to interrupt this. He shoots the Matrix out of Rodimus's hand, and Rodimus gives him the line, "This is the end of the road, Galvatron." He literally bear hugs him, picks him up in Gorilla Press Slam, and throws him right through the side of Unicron and into deep space. And then he picks the Matrix back up, and he's like, "Now, light our darkest hour." And we get this great moment where, once again, we get the "You've Got the Touch" music playing while we do some great camera cuts to different angles of slow motion Rodimus opening up the Matrix.
Yeah, it's great sequence.
And the power of the Matrix is being unleashed. And as you were kind of mentioning in your pre-show yesterday, with the power of the Matrix, the Matrix can split atoms, but only evil atoms.
Only evil ones.
Only the evil ones, because while the power of the Matrix rips through the bowels of Unicron and it starts destroying him from the inside out, thankfully none of the Autobots are affected by this, and they're able to make their escape and escape Unicron just before he explodes from the inside. You can even kind of hear Unicron making last gasps, like, "No, this cannot happen to me." And he's saying, to me, that bit of dialogue is like the closest you can probably hear to Orson Welles like physically dying in the movie. Like even his breath sounds labored, and he sounds breathless and unhealthy.
Yeah, he was not in good shape at all when he was actually doing the film.
He was not. Pulling his own leg off here,
Yeah, he's pulling his leg off. I think it's because Bret Hart he's been going at that knee relentlessly for the whole match, and that's what I think happened.
Of course, yes, the head blows off the body before the rest of the body explodes. We should also note as well that the Autobots, right before they make their escape, there is the reveal of Rodimus in his Super Winnebago mode.
Yes,
super futuristic RV.
Space Winnebago.
Space Winnebago. We also get Cup saying, "I always knew you had potential, lad." So now we see that full respect of he finally respects Hot Rod now that he's grown into a man bot. He began his life as a boy bot, but now he's a man bot, and he's the leader. And so we get the great moment. The Autobots also escape by crashing through Unicron's other eye. So they've managed to smash out both his eye holes, which will be a plot in a later episode in season 3, which I'm sure we'll cover someday.
Yeah.
So Unicron is destroyed. Galvatron is somewhere flying through space. We don't know what's happened to him yet. And we get a nice little moment back on Cybertron. All the surviving Autobots that we've seen in the movie are gathered around, and Rodimus gives his big rah-rah speech where, it's like, let this mark the end of the Cybertronian civil wars as we march forward in a new age of peace and happiness till all are one, and then the rest of them all repeat till
Unicron
all are
smashed the
one.
bad guys for us. Now we can go home.
Yeah. Unicron, you know, he evicted the Decepticons on our behalf, so everything's fine now. But as the camera pulls away from Cybertron, as we go towards the end, you can see the planet's absolutely wrecked. Obviously, it's just smashed to Kingdom Come.
You can fix it. It's all made of
in a
metal.
pretty bad way. And of course, we get the final shot of Unicron's head floating through space and kind of orbiting Cybertron. And I will actually say that on my original video that I watched of this was the moment. It's just when the head floats past the screen that the narrator's voice says something to the effect of, "The galaxy-spanning adventures of the Transformers will continue, and the greatest Transformer of them all, Optimus Prime, will return." That's what the narrator always said at the end of the version that I first
Well, he did return in season 3 as a zombie to die again.
Yes, yeah.
Quite
They weren't lying
gruesomely.
about that.
It was also insane and tried to kill his friends. So why they re-traumatize people, I don't know.
And it's one of my favorite episodes, which coincidentally enough, as a kid, I watched almost straight after the movie. I think I saw it a week after watching this movie. So it was a big deal for me at the time. So yeah, we get the final shot of Unicron's head orbiting Cybertron before we cut to the credits, and we get the excellent Transformers theme done in this kind of hard rock version, and it just sounds fantastic.
And the old credits roll, and they got old Nelson Shin was the director, and we had a pretty cool voice cast with Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron, and then in season 3 would go back to being Frank Welker, who did Megatron, of course. And what was it? Judd Nelson's Hot Rod, Lionel Stander as Cup, John Machida as Blur,
Batman Cruthers as Jazz, Orson Welles Unicron. Quite the cast. Quite the cast.
It was slightly, I don't know, it was controversial not at the time, but the voice cast were a pretty tight-knit crew on the original show, and they used to record in the same studio together, as opposed to being recorded individually and apart, as most post-90s animation was for America. But when it came to the movie, it does feel a bit dodgy that like all your main season casts were there for bit parts, but then all the big parts all of a sudden was going to Hollywood actors instead of your regular voice crew. So that was kind of shitty. So it was kind of shitty for them. But I mean, the movie turned out good cast. And when it came to season 3, we were back to the regular TV voice cast again.
Yeah, it seems, and if I had to guess as to the reasons why, it was literally just because the producers or the company execs probably thought it sounded good to have named stars.
This is marketing.
On the credits.
Marketing selling
just
point.
Marketing.
Robert Stack, Ultra Magnus.
Yeah.
I do love Robert Stack as Ultra Magnus. It's probably one of my favorite voices in that film.
Yeah, and the guy that they like the guys that they got to do the voice for Ultra Magnus, I'm assuming that it's obviously somebody different in the actual TV show, but they did a good
it's different TV show. They couldn't afford Robert Stack for the weekly show.
Galvatron not being Leonard Nimoy is very noticeable in season 3. It takes you a few episodes to get used to his voice.
Yeah, the voice is quite different, but then when you get to the one good thing about those terrible Michael Bay films is that you got Frank Welker back doing Megatron and Galvatron, and he evolved their voice through several different octaves and tones. And some of the voices he does in that are amazing, and you can ignore those stupid films and just look up Frank Welker doing Galvatron voices on YouTube, and it'll go right from G1 through each of the movies, and he'll show you each of the different. There's about 4 or 5 different distinct voices he does for Megatron and Galvatron. They're amazing, which also incorporates the movie type tones, even though he wasn't the character, even though he was Megatron but not Galvatron.
I'll go back a little bit as well and just say right before we watched that end and moment of them all smashing through Unicron's other eye, we did get some nice kind of glamour shots of them all transforming into their different modes, like Springer transforming into that chopper, and Jazz, Cliff Jumper, and Bumblebee, and everybody just having their little moment of transformation.
Yeah, because you don't see a whole lot of Ultros in this.
I noticed there, it comes to my mind when I see that Ultra Magnus is there at the end. Ultra Magnus kind of disappears for the final moments of this movie during the battle. Did you ever notice that before? He's just not in any of the scenes.
Yeah, it's like you've got Hot Rod doing his thing, and then Magnus and the other lot have just kind of, Magnus just kind of disappeared for a while conveniently. And I think it seems like that's a victim of the multiple drafts and that too, where it's going from one person to another. That there's a lot of inconsistencies and plot holes as far as characters popping up and disappearing, and then they're back and they disappear.
Look, we will not dwell on it. There's not much we can change about a movie that was released in 1986.
My other favorite voice actor, probably the one as a kid, other than recognizing voices from the TV show, the one voice I recognized as a kid who knew was an actor was Eric Idle. When he comes up as Rick, I was like, oh, that's Eric Idle, because I'd watched Monty Python when I was like 7 years old and definitely knew his voice.
Yeah, and a lot of the I remember I was reading some like contemporary reviews of the time where some of the American reviewers could not make out what Ratgar's character is saying at all. Whereas I think if you live over, like I think whereas like
I understood
English,
everything
Irish,
perfectly,
Australians, yeah, but see that's the thing though. I think we were just so used to
Operator Spirals, while you wait, operators are standing by.
And even so, he's got a bit of Cockney rhyming slang to his speech as well, which I can see maybe if you're an American, it might not just be natural to hear those type of sounds. But
that's a problem for Americans. It's not a problem for you or me.
Hey, and look, this is just reviews I was reading. Nobody I actually know out of our American fans has ever said, "Oh,
well,
I don't have
Americans
a clue what
had
he's
trouble apparently understanding the original Mad Max. That's why they did the bizarre dub into American, even though the original Mad Max is like pretty damn good bloody English. There's not a whole lot of slang and stuff in it. They announce it. They don't talk fast or ramble on. It's fairly easy to understand, and yet they dubbed that movie.
Yeah. Well, look, different strokes for different folks and different dialects for different regions and whatnot. But
it's fucking bullshit, man.
But yeah, that was Transformers the movie, the best Transformers movie in my opinion. I absolutely love it.
It's an early movie.
Just love it to bits. One of my favorite movies ever, and probably my favorite animated movie ever. I just adore it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've seen it. As a kid, I'd seen it on the rental VHS at the kid's birthday. It was a long time before I saw it again, but once we got into the DVD era, then I was able to watch it many, many, many more times.
And was with great discipline that I avoided trying to like just go through it line by line, because it's one of those movies like this movie's like it's burned into my mind, but I didn't just want to be just trying to do my dodgy versions of characters' voices the whole time. So hopefully I didn't drive people crazy when I was inserting my inane attempts at replicating the dialogue.
Watch Boba Joe show.
Yeah, and I agree with Grimlock's sentiment on that one.
Yeah, I agree too.
And once again, I would say to anybody watching, listening, if you haven't seen the movie,
it's free. Go watch it, you maniacs.
It's free. It's on YouTube. And look, even if you've seen the movie before and you want to rewatch it, you may as well take advantage of that good quality copy that's on YouTube. Don't worry about any legality or anything like that. Our lawyers have gone
taken
over
out
the details.
eventually, but it's up for now.
Yeah, you're totally safe to go ahead and watch it. The FBI aren't going to kick down your door and confiscate your laptop or anything.
I think it is kind of nuts, really, that Hasbro haven't put actually some version of the movie up on their own channel, because they've put loads of the various cartoons. They've got most of the original show, Transformers Prime on there, a fair bit of other kids ones and whatnot, Rescue Bots, RID. It's weird they haven't actually put it up there, because they've sold plenty of bloody discs and VHS and DVD, Blu-ray. It's on streaming networks. It's strange that they don't chuck it up on there. I mean, maybe it's making too much money for them. Maybe they're like, it's on streaming networks, and maybe there's a certain deal where they can't because of that. Who knows?
Maybe it is still a mystery, or maybe it's, obviously it's a Hasbro Sunbow production, but there's also is it like DEG or another company maybe produced it, so maybe there's a rights issue there or something.
A few different companies involved.
But perhaps if somebody knows the answer, they can comment or not. Don't worry. As long as we were able to watch the movie, we don't really care who owns it.
Yeah, it could be a rights thing. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, it could be a rights thing because I thought it's just odd with the amount of stuff they chucked up there. But yeah, we'll finish up there, man. I'm going to play the outro. We've done nearly, looking at a little timer, nearly 2.5 hours, which I knew we would. I knew before we got to this one, it's going to be a big show because we love this movie to bits.
One of the shorter movies in terms of length that you can watch, but you could probably talk about it for hours.
Yeah, I've read so many articles about stuff about it and retrospectives and different things, and I never get tired of it, really.
Also, fair play to us for not at every possible moment just getting up and grabbing our Transformers toys and going, look, I have an Ultra Magnus, or I've got a Unicron.
I've got 10 different Ultra Magnuses, and I'm not lying.
We're saving that for another show when we do the toys.
Yeah, we'll do another one later. Yeah, we can do some more favorite episodes of the show or seasons, and we can do an episode just on toys and.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, next week we're heading to Caesar's Palace. Is that right?
I'll have to check with my expert over here. What's he got to say about that? Gonna do a running, brother. Gonna do a running.
Yeah,
but
we're going to be
right.
seeing him a lot more than we want to. WrestleMania 9.
Indeedly doodly.
Stitching time saves WrestleMania 9. Looking forward to it.
Nothing can save WrestleMania. But yeah, we're gonna have to love you and leave you there. I'm gonna play the outro here, and we'll catch you guys next week for WrestleMania 9.
See you later, guys.